Welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream and to this event recap for Riches to Rags Summer 2023, the cPDH tournament in Philadelphia. And I've got my good friend Chris from One More Game MTG, who was
Yeah.
at the event, here to tell us a
Yep.
little bit about how it went. We were going to have you be a reporter on the ground, but
Yeah.
there were some difficulties in between. We had some blue screen of death happen.
Oh,
Yeah, midstream, it was awesome. I love that.
yeah. Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the event was a busy place, and we didn't have a chance to interview the winner yet. So, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
I am doing grand.
Yeah, you had a
Superstar.
long drive back.
Yep. It was a total. So even last night I left around 9-ish. I feel whatever it is, whatever the time I messaged you, whatever. And then I drove for like an hour, and I'm like, yep, I'm tired. So we pull over to a random spot, get a hotel, sleep. We both just completely crashed for like
Oh,
8-9 hours straight. And then woke up and then just drove back home, and the amount of traffic experienced. Oh my Lanta.
that sounds like a nightmare, honestly.
Yep.
You just want to get home, and then things start to
Yeah.
happen that make it very hard to do that.
Yeah, we look at the GPS, the entire 95 was just a giant deep red color.
Oh,
We're like, okay, that happened.
wow. Yeah.
So,
Not exactly what you want to deal with after
nope,
playing 4 rounds of
not at all.
Magic and driving all the way there. In my family, we always talk about the time driving there versus the time driving back, and then the time spent in a place. You never really want to
Yeah,
be doing like the drive a long ways to get somewhere to be there for a short period of time and then drive all the way
yep.
back.
The,
But
the accuracy of that, yeah.
yeah, it speaks to your commitment, though. You were excited to be at the event,
Oh yeah.
and from the looks of it, from where Lawbert and I were sitting, it looked like a riot.
Oh,
Both of us
it
were
was
so
crazy
envious.
fun.
Yeah, so tell us, you got there. It started what, around noon or so? Is that right?
Yeah, so doors opened up at 10:30.
Okay.
People were already starting to play test their decks, the whole 9 yards. And then it started around like 11:45. A couple people were late for the first round, so there's a couple of buys. But it went a good amount of time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's fantastic. And then you were matched up in round one. You were playing Garna, is that right? Garna
correct. Yep,
Bloodfist
that
of
is
Keld.
correct.
Okay, we'll pull that one up on the screen here in a moment. That is a Rakdos commander. What is it? Double black, red,
No,
uh,
double red
double
black
red
in a
black
white.
for a
No, no,
four.
no, colorless.
Yep, for a 4/3 with some pretty unique abilities. And we're going to talk a whole lot about Garna, but first I want to just cover kind of the experience of the tournament, and just how well it seemed to be organized, and just the vibe in the room. The chatter in the background was like ASMR. I think everybody really enjoyed
Yeah.
hearing everybody, the little cacophony of talk and chatter coming from the hall. Um, so was
It,
it?
it it genuinely is like it's like a mini family on the backside. Like there was so much communication among everybody. Even like there's always those people who are like new to the format. Like one
Mhm.
of the pods I played, two of the three other people were literally, it was their very ever first event they'd ever been to. They were like super nervous, but they were still being open and talking, and
Good.
like it was way better than one could have imagined. Like there was people playing, like I said, the biggest thing was there was tons of variety of decks. Everyone was playing unique things. They had their own little twists on it. There was only a few repeats overall. It literally showed that the true potential is not just like this single formatted meta kind of style
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It gives the opportunity now that just show like you can play all kinds of different things. Like you can still do very, very well by playing generic stuff, and like seeing these new decks and seeing people pilot them, like it was a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
genuinely enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that from what I saw, there were a lot of decks that I really enjoy playing, and I love to play mid-range stuff. So it seemed like there was quite a bit of mid-range,
Yep.
even if there were mid-range decks that had combos tucked into them. The combos were oftentimes like a variety of different things that could come together at different points in the game, but that generally speaking, a lot of these games they got relatively grindy. We saw some incredibly grindy games. One with Ellis Core and with Orzhov Abdel, with
Yeah,
Agent of the
that's I
Iron
watched
Throne.
that one too. That thing was beyond grindy.
Yeah, that was wild. Yeah, getting
I'm
2 decks
sitting
at the
there, I'm like
table.
nail biting at how the whole game playing out.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one, I predicted incorrectly that it wouldn't end. But I think that was under the pretense that there would only be one round or one
Mhm.
turn after it was called. Um, that was my last experience playing. Was there was one turn afterward. Um, and although in Detroit, that was 5 rounds, I think is what we had.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, they ended up closing the game out still. Looping, turns out looping Gary is pretty good. You
That's
just
how I lost one of my pods.
did you lose it to them? Was that just
No, not
looping?
that. It wasn't that specific Ellie, but it was another player playing an Ellis pod as well.
Yeah,
I lost to the Gary on that one.
yep, yep. And there was a lot of pinging. As
Hmm.
a dynamic, there
Oh
was a
yeah.
lot of pinging, and so I did see that that there were a couple of games with TPI where life totals got really really low with Third Path Iconoclast because their pinging doesn't actually work as well against the kinds of pinging that Black does. Black usually comes with some amount of life gain attached to it, so the differential that you're putting between yourself and your opponents is more significant. You're gaining life, they're all losing life, whereas in red, it's all just doing damage.
Well, that's the
Um,
thing. So like one of the pods, it was myself, a what was it, a Demir deck, and then two Ellises, like
oh
two
my
Ellies in
god.
the same exact. So me and the Demir player were like, okay, well we're gonna sit here while they go to like 100 life, and we're just gonna assume it's gonna like we're just gonna be dead, and that it'll be the Ellie versus Ellie. And I was able to, because with my red sources, I was able to keep them down under 25 life the entire time. They never cracked 30. It was, I think maybe like they peaked one time kind of thing, but they were
Wow.
down low on their lives. At one point, we're sitting there. It was 11 of all three players had 15 life, and we're all like, okay, well that's not like what happened to El Cor over
Oh
here?
my
Like,
god. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it was
wild.
insane.
I mean, Garna does have the unique ability to apply more of that symmetrical damage than most other decks
Yeah.
that do that kind of a thing. It's a lot of damage. So there is that to be said for it. But let's take a quick look here. I'm going to swap us over into this window capture. Take a look at the event. So here's the event page for it. One of the things that's worth stating about this event is that this actually had a modified legality. And I'm really curious to look into the deck list to see how many people took advantage of that. The rules here, you can see they're trailblazing for for cPDH here, and what they allowed for was any background at rarity, uncommon or common. So it says this tournament will be allowing common legendary backgrounds for Battles of Baldur's Gate in the command zone. And they said, well, this may not be in the spirit of the rules committee, that they are legendary and that was their rationale for using them. So it's experimental. And we definitely saw some success from a deck that we probably could have anticipated would do well with a common in the command zone, which is
Mhm.
Abdel plus Candlekeep Sage.
Yep.
We had Bobby Fine position who placed fourth in the tournament overall with that deck, and there were multiple people playing it. But I'd be very curious to look into the details here and see what else how the cookie crumbled on that. We also had a great prize pool here of rewards for the top four, and yeah. So let's take a look at. Let's see. I'm trying to think how we should do this because we've got on one hand we've got your deck list, which we want to explore. I want to hear
Mhm.
about how your games went, but we kind of need to know what deck you were playing before we hear about the games, don't we? So why don't we pull up your list here and we'll do things a little bit in reverse, or maybe what we could do too. We could also just look at the lists. Yeah, let's do that. We'll take a look at the lists that won, and then we'll go take a look at your list, and then we'll talk about the games and how they played out. So,
Mhm.
okay, so our finalist here, the person who won the game was Ross Berkowitz with 10 points here. Very healthy win rate. And of course, Ross was on TPI. Third Path Iconoclast. This commander is starting to make waves. It is my favorite commander, that's for damn sure. And TPI is an Is-It commander that for 2 mana reads, anytime you cast a non-creature spell, you create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. And this non-creature clause is very flexible. Instants, sorceries, enchantments, artifacts, the whole 9 yards. It all works with TPI. And this is a very interesting version of TPI, very different from what I play. In fact, we can even illustrate that here by going and taking a look at my Third Path Iconoclast with the compare feature on moxfield.com. Got to find the one that's active here. Yep, this one. And you can see that there are 67 cards different between our 2 lists. Basically different decks, right? Like completely different decks. And we talked about this a lot with Lobert on the last stream, but I just wanted to illustrate there that this is really unique. Basically what we saw in a lot of the games that this deck won is that it was leveraging the mono blue combo of Pneumatic Wall, Peregrine Drake, and then our Ghostly Flicker or Displace to make infinite mana. If you have TPI in play and you loop this, you don't need to have a payoff to win the game on the following turn. You make infinite 1/1s. The way that you can win on the spot is if you have a Reckless Fireweaver and TPI, then every time you make a token, the Reckless Fireweaver will ping. So you flicker them endlessly. You get infinite cast triggers, infinite mana, and you can burn the table out that way. You can do that with Kessig Flamebreather, but you don't need TPI in play. And you can also do it with Gutter Snipe. Another thing that they did is they had Tandem Lookout to pair with Gutter Snipe, Reckless Fireweaver, and Kessig Flamebreather. Tandem Lookout here allows you to draw cards every time you have a pinger that's activated. So if you have a Gutter Snipe in play, Tandem Lookout soul bonds to it, you opt, you hit everybody for 2, and you draw 3 cards before you resolve your spell. So they had the Curiosity combo, they had pingers, they had the Flicker combo, they even had Murmuring Mystic in here, they had Archaeomancer, and then their payoffs were kind of wild. Because they were also running Ashnod's Altar, which will make you a happy man as an Ashnod's Altar enjoyer. Ashnod's Altar here reads 3 mana. You can activate to sacrifice and gain 2 colorless mana to your mana pool to sack a creature. And one of the ways that they were leveraging Ashnod's Altar was with Rolling Thunder, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I saw that one. Like, I was going through a list. Like, oh, there's a. At first, I saw the energy fract or whatever it is on the top end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, this is not commonly here.
Yeah.
And then I saw that there was the sack outlet. And I'm okay, I can see what they're getting some infinite mana, obviously off the Drake combo. And then I'm like, okay, there's a Rolling Thunder in here. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah. Yeah. This is some wild stuff. You know, the Ross played incredibly well. I think that's really worth mentioning.
Beautifully.
He had some godlike hands. His final game was insane. The game in the finals, I think he won on turn 6. Everybody tapped out, and he just had the whole combo in hand without tutoring for it at all. He did no searching.
Got up to talk to my baby real quick, basically.
And it was
over. I turned
over.
around for a second, talked to Aaron, and all of a sudden I turn around and everyone's like picking up their stuff. I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah. He it was wild. Abdel tapped out to resolve Abdel. TPI player said, "Well, I guess I'll go for it." And they go Mana Geyser, okay, which made 12 mana. They went Peregrine Drake into Pneumatic Wall. I think it was Wall, or maybe it was Ardent Elementalist. Pardon me, Ardent Elementalist. And then they Ghostly Flickered the 2. Made him, and then they Ghostly Flickered the Ardent Elementalist and I think it was the Kessig Flamebreather. No, I think it was Kessig Flamebreather, which had Spirit Link on it, which means that with just Ardent Elementalist and Peregrine Drake and Ghostly Flicker, it might have been Displace, I can't remember, he could have killed 2 people, but he would have gained a ton of life for the Satyr Enchanter, right?
Yep.
And so what he did is he flickered, and then he used the Ardent Elementalist, the Ghostly Flicker, and Kessig Flame Breather to drop the aura, and he flickered infinitely to kill the entire table. And he just did it. And he had a cost reducer in play. He had made land drops the whole time. He had multiple mana rocks, TPI, a pinger, like interaction the whole time. Like it was the stone cold nuts. Like it must have been like a 1 in like 200 kind of draw. It was very impressive. So anyways, we saw this list here. He also has an infinite mana, infinite storm and mana payout here in Capsize and in Grape Shot. So wild stuff.
He basically took like every little thing that's good in Izzet and threw it all
smashed it together. Yeah.
And it just melded so beautifully because it's just the right amount of like spells, like whether it be a counter or the impulse draws, the recursion thing. Every little bit he like the timing of like, okay, I want 2 of these or 1 of those and 3, like everything was just exactly where it needed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it was very well played on his part, too. I thought that the most fascinating thing was the way he interacted with the table with his spells to signal that he didn't have it when he did. Like, I thought this was like kind of like 1,000 IQ play if this is what Matt was thinking, if this is what Ross was thinking. Because he was interacting with the table with counter spells and with removal on other people's stuff in a way that sort of signaled I'm contributing to the table by helping contain these threats. And that sort of signals that if you're a combo deck that you don't have it because you're using your resources not for your own combo but to contain other people's things. So like Satyr Enchanter got killed twice. It does work,
actually. Because even myself, when I presented one of my loops and I played it, and then I started just like dropped everything and go, I need this, and this before I could even start doing that. This player has this right here. That player's got that right there. And I completely eluded from what I'd even played just to be like, hey, yeah, 100%. This is part of my combo. Like, I'm not going to lie. This is what I'm going to do. But that's not the problem right now. And then I just started pushing and pushing and pushing towards everything else. And it completely eluded from what I had just played. And I think that's what Ross really used to his advantage. Is like completely ignore. Like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't have it. You're fine. Ignore me. Very similar to how like Paul did it when he was in Detroit. No, it's not. You're fine. It's not me. Don't worry about it. And just went. You know?
Well, and what's interesting is that there's like the verbal element of it, which is convincing people that you aren't doing a thing when you are. But what the layer above that was to be using spells, because then people, they really see like that you know, it gave everybody an opportunity to try and push their engines forward. So Abdel said, sure, I'll go for Abdel and I'll try and resolve Abdel. Satyr Enchanter tried to resolve Abdel. You know, there's like some stuff going on. And then they just went for it, and it was impressive. And there were 2 games where there was stuff like that happened, and I was very impressed by that. So so this was the winner of the event. Next we had Garrett here on Satyr Enchanter, and I haven't had a chance to like look at this list super clearly, but this player has chosen to go incredibly deep on auras and enchantments. There's 56 of them in the deck.
So that was my first pod that I had played, and the way they came up, now they didn't do like their draws weren't the greatest on it itself, but they used the fact that they really weren't doing anything in a sense to their advantage.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, so like here's, I can draw some stuff like somebody was just mentioning a moment ago. They knew they weren't gonna like win very efficiently like Malcolm Breaches or like TPI kind of styles can do like right away. They were using that like, yeah, I'm just gonna draw some cards. That's all I'm doing. Like it's no big deal, just drawing cards. And when I saw his list, and I'm like, there's a lot of enchantments in this. And usually even when I built my Satyr deck, I had I think it was like 28 enchantments in a sense, but this is more than half their deck is enchantments.
Yeah, let's take a quick look here.
Value.
Yeah, so they're very low on lands. This is something I'm noticing. There were a lot of newer players at the tournament who are unfamiliar with the format or who are new to the format. And I think that there's a lot of folks who, when they come over from cEDH, they bring a lot of the cEDH over with them. And one of those things is really low land counts. So it's like pretty common to see in a lot of these lists here that people are running like, well under 34 lands. And you can kind of do that in Satyr if you were to play a lot of mana dorks. But really, the only mana dorks you want are the ones that untap lands that have enchantments on them, right? And you do end up running out of those at a certain point. And Satyr is just a mana hungry deck. You want to take a lot of game actions, right? You want to be like, get Satyr down and then start running enchantments out over and over and over again. And having lands in play, like making your land drops, is very helpful. But it performed well. It was this was our second place deck. So, maybe there.
One thing I found was pretty cool with my game when I faced them, just to even interject itself.
Yeah.
Is they put what was it, Fists of Ironwood?
Yep.
On my 1/1. Now it was more so just for like to create 2 blockers for themselves, but in that moment it made it like more like, this kid, like, they're clearly not doing anything. They're putting a Fist of Ironwood on one of my creatures, like on a 1/1. That's clearly never going to get more than 1 power. And it made it like us far less to think that he could be a threat in any way whatsoever.
Yep.
So they use the things like that, like little tricks and whatnot.
Yeah.
To like try to pull away from what they were doing. So I think that's the reason why they played so heavily on the enchantments. Like, even if obviously like they're playing very Voltron style in a sense of just drawing a bunch of cards and the value itself, you have that option to potentially use it against a quote against your opponents, but still gain the value from those things itself
by drawing a card,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's rather interesting. There's the Satyr Enchanter deck. What I think this illustrates to me, because some of these cards are not cards that I would choose. You've got Alms here. And we have Fanatical Devotion. There's only 13 creatures in the deck. There's a couple of cards that do produce creatures, like your Fists of Ironwood. But this is kind of a bit of a Xerox deck, actually, the way they built this. And for those of you unfamiliar with Xerox, it's the concept of playing very cheap and free cards that replace themselves in such a high density that you virtually reduce the number of cards in your deck, and you hit them very consistently. So, old Xerox decks were, back in, this might have been like late 90s or early 2000s, were blue decks that basically just cycled and cantripped to get to a narrow range of cards that they wanted to have. And it's the idea that you're going to do all this stuff so that you always hit these certain cards. It's a way of being very consistent. And the way you do that is by having cheap cantrips. So, a card like Abundant Growth or Unbridled Growth, both of these cards are going to, on cast, they're going to draw a card. And then both of them can draw another card. This one's on ETB, this one's on Sacrifice. You can see that the mana curve here is very, very low. You've got
crazy low.
Seal of Strength, Spider Umbra, Font of Fertility, Parapet, Gaia's Touch, Alms. Like, they're very focused on a very low curve. And this is an interesting hypothesis because, on one hand, you've got all these amazing auras, right? Like at common, Boggles is insane. Like, you get everything but Daybreak Coronet, basically. And Core Spirit Dancer, I guess, and SRAM. You don't get those, but you get everything else. Ancestral Mask, you've got your, let me see if I can find it here, Armadillo Cloak. You've got your lifelink effects like Spirit Link and Lifelink. You've got cards like, oh my god, I'm forgetting the card right now, but you've got all the glitters.
Ethereal Armor.
Yeah, you have Ethereal Armor, Aura Gnarlid, you have Yavimaya Enchantress. There's just so many powerful cards that you get in this deck. And ironically, this person didn't have any of those. They didn't have Yavimaya Enchantress or a Gnarlid.
That's what I saw myself. It was very confused. I was stoked to see that there was a Satyr in there, and I was even more amazed to see it in the top 4, given that
it didn't have
a lot of the main staples, quote unquote, that are played with the Enchanter weren't there.
Like Glade Cover Scout. I mean, all of these cards with hexproof, like Silhana Ledgewalker, Glade Cover Scout, are so important to the strategy. But and I think that perhaps there's something to be learned from this deck by combining the idea here of a lot of really cheap stuff that's going to draw you cards, while also including the staple cards for this archetype, and that is Aura Gnarlid, Yavimaya Enchantress, Silhana Ledgewalker. It didn't have Ancestral Mask.
Mm.
It's very
I think
interesting.
I think the reason, again, when you were saying a moment ago with the whole Xerox thing, I think because it's a 3-drop, they want to really keep the 3-drop slot as low as possible.
It's wild though,
Given
because
like
this
more than half, almost half the deck is that.
I mean, this 3 mana card kills people on the
Yeah.
spot. If you land this on basically most things, you're going to kill somebody. These cards here, with any sort of evasion, trample, flying, they get absolutely enormous. So a bit suboptimal on the list. Perhaps this player is newer to the format, because these are some of
So
the cards that most people would
they
know
told me
about.
that was their first event
Okay.
for Pauper,
Yeah, yeah.
and that they generally play Legacy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think what we can learn from this is that there are a couple cards on my watch list, right? Cards like Seal of Primordium, Abundant Growth, Unbridled Growth. Any of these cheap cards that are enchantments that draw a card become divination, right? Very, very, very cheaply drawing more cards. So definitely very cool. They've also favored the tutors here, so you can see they have Shrine Steward and Totem Guide Heartbeast, whereas I've opted to instead play a couple of creatures that return enchantments from the graveyard to my hand. The nice thing about these cards that find an enchantment while they're also a body, whether it's coming back from the graveyard or not, is that they basically provide the body that you will put the aura onto. And that's a really good pairing. You know, it's why cards like Nyxborn Shieldmate are good. It's why cards like, let's see if I can find the other one here. They may have had it actually, which was, yeah, Hopeful Eidolon is another one. It's just a 1-mana, 1/1 enchantment with lifelink, enchantment creature with lifelink, or Spirited Companion. You can see they did have all the glitters. They had Broken Fall. They had a lot of the core of the deck is still here. 53 cards shared, but almost 46 different. So, yeah, pretty wild. Of course, in my list, I have Slumbering Keepguard, the new card, but they didn't have access to that because the set is not available yet. So, anyways, there's Satyr. And then let's go on to Brendan Carter here, who is playing Rilsa. And we've already talked about these ones a little bit, so I won't talk about these too much more. This one was quite interesting for basically being a very, very low on lands, having a ton of mass discard. Did you play against this player?
I did not, but I know that they had a lot of solid evasion, allowing their opponents like control their hands more so than controlling the board, and they use that to their advantage, from what I was heard from other people.
Yeah, yep. Little bit lighter on lighter on removal. They had a few more counter spells than what I play. I think they had 5 when I usually run 2. Yeah, or it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5 of them. They had less removal. They had about the same number of, a little bit less creatures than I do. And then they very low on lands, which is a little tough because this is a 5-mana commander. But they had a lot of mass discard. They went hard into discard. Yeah. I mean, Mind Rake and Delirium Skeins hard. Like, we're all going to be completely empty-handed. And there is some validity to that. If you are trying to approach Rilsa from the angle of, I'm going to get down a bunch of evasive creatures, I'm going to gain the initiative, I'm going to obliterate your hands, and then I'm going to try and solo the table. These kind of strategies tend to be pretty risky because 3v1s are hard to win. You can win a 2v1. You can win a 1v1. 3v1, a little bit harder. But if you have the initiative and you are controlling it and going through the throne and going into the, into the catacombs and making the skeleton and goading people, there is some validity to that. However, the creatures that they had didn't lend themselves very well to them actually being able to apply that pressure and to close the game out. So kind of an interesting list here. I definitely have gone back and forth on Liliana's Spectre, and that's something that I could see myself doing, having maybe a reusable source of discard. But generally speaking, I like to keep my opponent's cards in their hand so that I'm not solely responsible for controlling combo players. But I'm going to be taking a look at this one again, and there's some stuff to learn here for sure. I really like their inclusion of Jace's Phantasm. Talk about spicy. If you're discarding everybody's hands, this is a 1/5 flying. It was very good. And then they also had the Mistblade Shinobi, which is a card that I ended up taking out of the deck. But when Mistblade Shinobi gets pumped up by Rilsarael's combat stims, you are going to eat 2 creatures a turn with the Abyss because of Menace, First Strike, and Death Touch. Or you're going to hit them for a bunch of damage and then bounce a creature anyways. So it's pretty strong, and it's a 1-mana ninjutsu. And if you give it Death Touch, it's kind of bouncing one creature and killing another. So definitely like the Moonblade Shinobi there, or the Mistblade Shinobi. And then the other card that I probably will be adding to my list is Tandem Lookout. My version of the deck has like everything is evasive. Everything has flying or unblockability. And this card, like if you give it Death Touch, you swing at the combo player, and you swing your unblockable thing at somebody else, you're going to draw 2 cards a turn off of it, right? So it's definitely a juicer. So yeah, there's our top 3 right there. And then we had Bobby on a fairly stock Abdel Candlekeep Sage deck. However, one of the big differences here is that when you have Candlekeep Sage in the command zone instead of Sword Coast Sailor, you kind of don't need to run draw spells. And that's kind of what we see here.
You get a lot more overall value just in the zone alone, because the amount of value you get off Abdel from the get-go, watching him play, you could just see, like, it just created, like, you knew, like, going in, like, when you're playing Abdel, like, you're just going to get way more value immediately to replace itself.
Yep. And you can see that he leaned into a lot of these ETB effects with cards like Arkham's Astrolabe that he can flicker, with the Hierophant's Chalice, which is stock in these lists because it is a payoff for infinite flickering. The Mana Geode for scrying, also very stock. Vessel of Endless Rest can help pick things out of your graveyard so you can reuse them or to hate on other people's graveyards. But his deck was like a bunch of ETB creatures, a bunch of flickers and counterspells, a bunch of rocks, and that's it. I mean, it literally is like he has one draw spell that isn't a creature, and that's Lorien Revealed. These other ones are just like minimum card selection, Ponder, Preordained Merchant Scroll, Gitaxian Probe. And I could even envision these, in his list having just become more creatures. But this is like a classic flicker deck, right? Look at the proportion between these 2 zones right here. Your permanents of your creatures that you want to flicker are about the same number as your spells, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Muddle the Mixture can be a flicker too. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 flickers, 19 creatures. So he's playing like every flicker available. I think the only one that he doesn't have here is Acrobatic Maneuver. That might be it. There are slow flickers that he's not playing as well, but yeah, like reasonable number of lands here with a little bit of life gain and shuffling mixed in there with Ash Barrens, Broker's Hideout, Obscura Storefront, a little tutor ability with Lorien Revealed and Mystic Sanctuary, a heavy focus on islands, and then a couple of counter spells, but not very many. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 counter spells. Wow. That's wild. It's very purposeful. It's looking to do one thing, and that is cast this thing and then flicker it and profit.
Yeah, it was just bare bone to the point. There was no like random like convolutions to it whatsoever. It was just like, I want to flicker my things, period. That's all it is. I don't care about anything else. Everything else will just come along with it.
Yeah. Did you play against Bobby that game in the tournament?
I did not, but I watched a couple of the games that Bobby was in.
Yep, that's awesome. Cool. Sweet. So yeah, pretty stock here for what Abdel players are doing. Um, go down to Wayne here, and Wayne was on Rasad Feywild Visitor, and this is an interesting list here. I've worked a fair bit on Rasad, a Sword Coast Sailor, and I was actually really excited about Feywild Visitor as a general background that you could use, but it never occurred to me to use it in Rasad because I figured that the unblockability on a player would be more useful. But the reality is that the unblockability incentivizes you to like attack the wrong people. It's like you want to get the unblockability out of it, so you attack other people, but it's like warping your decision making as opposed to just like attacking the people who need to be pressured, right? Um, and this actually looks very similar to what I play. You can see it's a very, very low curve. Look at that. It's like a ski slope here. 21 permanents with mana value 1, and you can also see it's mostly permanents, right? Most of this is creatures. And this is one of the fastest aggro decks in the format. The main differences that this deck has is that they're playing Staunch Throne Guard and Totem Guide Heartbeast, which are still perfectly reasonable. This is just a 5 mana 5/5 Vigilance that gains you the Monarch, and this is a 5 mana 5/5 that tutors for an aura. I've chosen to go lower on the curve because I don't want these in my. I don't really want to draw these. I basically want to have as many 1 and 2 drops that hit for like 4 to 6 damage each as I possibly can. I did see a game where he tutored for Flight of Fancy, which is a card that I had in my original deck build. And Flight of Fancy is 4 mana, draw 2 when it ETBs, and it gives a creature flying. So it's basically like a tutorable divination off of your auras, which is kind of cool. So, but otherwise, this is pretty standard. Good number of lands. He has a good number of like big anthems with Solidarity, Steadfastness, Bar the Door, even Mizium Skin does the same thing, and then Keep Watch to draw a bunch of cards. Sky Shaper here, give everything flying. So that was pretty cool. Good to see them doing well. This is another commander that I really like. And then we had Chum Guzzler here. And they were on a very stock build of Gretchen. Not much to say here. This is just a good Gretchen deck. Did you play against Gretchen?
I did. So I actually faced against Eric. He was the one where we got to we got to turns, and we were on the final rotation where there was only like like my turn and the next was there, and he top decked. What the hell was the name of it? Not Vizier.
Was it Ouroboros Breezecaller?
Alchemist.
Oh, Galvanic Alchemist.
I'm pretty sure that's what he did. Yeah, and it was off of a top deck.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So
and
he comboed
I'm sitting there
off.
digging it, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I literally like. I was like, I could do this right now. So that was the game where it was Gretchen, Eudora, TPI.
Oh, okay.
So it was the TPI player was kind of new to it. I think he had played like Modern and Legacy before this, so he wasn't like crazy, like understand, like quote unquote like new to cPDH, but still like was a very, very good
good Magic player, new to the format. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
He was when you and I faced the game in the Sanctuary, how you were a little bit more reserved. He played a little bit more reserved as well, which basically allowed him to like not win in a sense, you know. But the Gretchen player just kept digging and digging and digging. They were making like 15 to 20 mana, it felt, in a single rotation almost, but just had nothing to do other than just keep digging with Gretchen.
And nobody was killing them?
And that's where the TPI basically kind of like made the presence of like the whole like, because the Eudora player was playing Eudora and no one knew what the hell was going on with that.
Eudora.
Because no one had seen Eudora. So in a more sense, the Gretchen and the TPI player were all like, what the hell are we doing right now? So they were more so just like trying to hold back, trying to figure out what's gonna happen with the Eudora at any point. Because it was like they were playing the morph cards.
How do you spell that? Eudora?
Why? Yeah, it's the one that Derek made. The flip one that turns into forests.
Yud.
Yedora.
Eudora. Oh, they were playing this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
So that
Uh-huh.
confused the entire
Yeah.
table.
Like, what is this deck doing?
So they played out. They put a morph card face down,
Yep. Yep.
and at that moment, I go, okay, I know of some of them because I had played standard and EDH, so I kind of know of some of the flip ones. But for what's gonna be played in cPDH, I had no idea.
Birch Lore
Uh,
Rangers. That's the big one.
yeah, Eric had no idea. The TPI had no idea. So we're just sitting there like, okay, so what do we do? Like, is there gonna be like an instant combo out of the blue? Like I know there's infinite combo options in Eudora
Yeah.
deck, but it's
Yep.
like at what point do they come? So that basically more so that the TPI and the Gretchen player were holding up all of their interaction to like look out for the potential like instant
Wow.
win. And then the Eudora player played Pilipala, and that kind of like froze the game because we all know that like so they played
I'm in
Pilipala.
danger.
Okay, we're like, okay, do they have the rest of the cards in their hand? Like, do they have the combo? They drew into Astronaut's Altar the turn after, and then at that point, that's when they're like, okay, there was interaction galore. At one point, there was 6 spells on the stack
Oh my God.
of like back and forth counterings. So
Wow.
it got pretty crazy. At towards the end, the TPI player was 100% gonna win if they got back to their turn.
Yeah. Yep.
So the Adora, they had the Quark that sacrificed things to do 1 damage to everything,
Okay.
and they were like holding that as a backup, like just in case things happen. And then the Eudora was able to like make their Eudora a 16 power creature by sacrificing a bunch of things and doing all their bunch of combo tricks. And as they're doing their tricks, both the Gretchen and the TPI were like, "What the hell is happening right now?" And they're like trying to figure out everything. And I think that in a partial of itself is bringing something that like no one knows is an advantage in its own.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you just like, if especially if your opponents don't have as much experience in the format, it would kind of be like if you went into Legacy and you were playing like a lands deck, right? And your opponent doesn't know what you do, they don't know what you're up to, and then they learn that you're a Field of the Dead deck with Mulch and Winding Way and Fast Bond, and they're like,
Yep.
oh, oh, I see.
That's gonna happen. Yeah.
All 9 of your lands are in play now. Cool. That kind of a thing,
Yeah.
right? They go like turn 1 land, exploration, land, into some crazy nonsense, and then they empty their hand into play, and then they're 16 power zombies from Field of the Dead or something.
And you're just like, huzzah.
Yeah, exactly. And this may
So
not have been doing something that explosive, but the unknown factor of it, and the fact that they had
really
morph
did it, yeah.
creatures. The unknown information sounds like it spooked people. So
Yeah, because one of their combinations included one of the flip. So if when it flips over, it puts a 1/1 counter on target creature.
yeah,
Doesn't seem like it does much, but it allowed themselves to like basically that's like 1/3 of a combo in their deck, and we had no idea that it did that. That like that's part of their combination, and the only way because I knew that they should have went after the combo play, but I knew that the TPI player had the win in their hand based on the board presence because if they had a pack attack, they had it instantly.
and I think they had that in the deck, didn't they?
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I'm
Yep.
pretty sure they had like a total of 12 soldiers on the artifact twos on the field.
Wow.
So I had to. They kept going back and forth, and the Eudora got up to 16 power. With the amount of blocks and sacrifice things, it still wouldn't have been enough because they were at 24 life before the attack. So when they did all the damage, they only were able to get in 12, I think it was, of commander damage, and that's when I tainted strike their commander to control the board state. So when it went back around rotation, they killed them due to infect damage. Came back to me, and I go, you now need to kill the combo player, because I knew I could deal with the Eudora player, because they were at 1. So the Eudora player was down to 1 life.
Tainted Strike.
And I had, yeah. Gives +1/+0
that card
in
is in
deck.
your deck. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's really funny.
I had the Eudora player dead on board because they were at 1 life, and I had Masquerade Bats on the field with 4 treasure tokens.
Yeah, the Mirkwood Bats. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I can kill you right this second, but I need you to kill these 2 players before I do anything with your board.
Wow.
Because I had them dead on board, so I was literally using them for my entire advantage.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's well played. And then the game ended up not. He ended up getting the Galvanic Alchemist. The Gretchen did.
Legit top deck. So
Wow.
because he was digging and digging and digging, and I think he got to about a third of the deck down, and he finally found the last piece he
Well, he
needed.
worked hard for it. My gosh.
Yeah, he did. He seriously did.
Wow, that's wild. And then we had Stein here, a member of
Oh
the.
my God! All day he was telling me about what he was doing. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. This is the funny thing is when we were going through the list here, I was like, oh, I'm gonna look up a card here, to like show people. And the weird thing is that when usually when you're looking at people's lists, there's no card search, right? And what I realized is, oh, this is like this is also my deck.
Yeah.
So he was playing our deck, which we worked on as a submission to the cPDH deck database back when that was still a thing. And yeah, this looks great. If you're depending on how much blue and how many counter spells you plan to run into will determine how good Zada is. If there aren't a lot of counter spells and there's not a lot of sweepers, I think you can expect to run over a lot of people with this deck because removal does not work against Zada. You go like Zada, cast Zada, you've got all this mana in play, all these creatures, all these dorks that generate mana, and then you go kick in the door, and you copy it, 7 times, right? And then opponent goes Victim of Night, and you go cool, Fists of Flame on the stack.
Yep.
You draw everything, you cast all of these huge mana spells, you cast more draw spells, Sudden Breakthrough, Enthusiastic Study, Blazing Crescendo, Crimson Wisps, and then you just like draw all this stuff, and then you like, oh yeah, Zada dies now, but I have like 35 mana, 12, 15 creatures, they're like 7 power, double strike, haste, and then you just win the game, right? So I'm really glad to see Stein playing this deck and bringing it there, and he did quite well. I mean, 7th place in a 37 player tournament here.
I think one of the games he said he had well over 100 damage.
Yeah.
On like turn 5, I think he said.
Wow.
Like after every he's like, I did this and there was this much damage, and I'm like, the second he's like, do you know what I brought? I go, I bet I know what you brought.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Azada all like the last couple of weeks.
Stein is a very enthusiastic Zada player, and I love it.
100%.
I appreciate it when people have a list and a deck that they play, and they play that thing, and they hyper focus on improving that deck. I do a little bit of that because I have my decks that I really care about, but I'm kind of doing both because we also have the Let's Build streams where we're building new stuff there. So that's great. And then we'll go down to Joseph here. Yeah, Jin Shooting Star mentions hyper focused builders have an edge after all. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've been like working on Murmuring Mystic and TPI for like years now, right? And yeah, I know what to do with the deck, right? Same with Rilsa, Satyr Enchanter to a degree as well, Crackling Drake, Thrill Parasite. Those decks are ones that I've just put a lot of work into, and their play patterns are familiar to me. So, okay, so we have here Joseph on a very familiar build of Malcolm Breaches. This is an Ophidian Eye Tandem Lookout Curiosity deck. These are the Curiosity cards here. You're putting them on pingers. You're turning one of these into a pirate. And then you're going to make infinite mana and draw all the cards. Yeah, there you go. That's the deck.
It's straightforward. Yeah.
It's very it's very straightforward. Yeah, this is pretty stock. Even this land count here is like very disciplined. I like it. 33 lands. We have, where's Lorien Revealed? I think it's in here. Yeah, Lorien Revealed. Did they have any? They don't have Oliphant in here, which is fine. That's not crucial. But Lorien Revealed, 34 lands, 7 mana rocks. A mix of 2s and 3s here. They do actually have Bonder's Ornament, which, You probably don't need Bonder's Ornament in this deck because you draw a lot of cards off of the Ophidian Eye combo and off of Breaches. But it's totally reasonable. This is a bit more conservative, so I kind of like it inherently. But the 3 mana rocks do slow down your Malcolm a little bit because they're kind of coming down on the same turn. So if you get a 2 mana rock into a Malcolm, then you can cast Malcolm and hold up something like Dive Down, Intervene, Mizium Skin, Dispel, Spell Pierce, Reb, Pyro, things like that. But they had Breath Weapon and Fiery Cannonade, which is great, given some respect to aggro. They're also on a fairly narrow interaction suite of removal. So mostly counter spells. Deprive, Dispersal Shield, Memory Lapse, Negate, Counterspell, Arcane Denial. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. Thunderclap, Heated Debate, Harvest Pyre, Scred, and Lightning Bolt. Sigil of Sleep to pair with the pingers here to remove the whole board. And then Boomerang for Gretchen and other pesky permanents. All of the type changers here as well. So yeah, nice and compact. They've got Step Through. One card that I don't see here that I would be very interested in seeing would be just a Murmuring Mystic. Just like one slot for a Murmuring Mystic.
Yeah.
Or Murmuring Mystic and an Archaeomancer, because the Archaeomancer can get back a card like Blades of Velisfel or Wings of Velisfel or Trickery Charm. Those are also options. I'm also noticing, do they have Dizzy Spell?
No, I don't believe so.
No Dizzy Spell. Usually Dizzy Spell will be here to get Image Crafter, Rune Stalactite, or Trickery Charm. So that's kind of interesting. I guess the Step Through here. What are they Wizard Cycling for? Oh, they're Wizard Cycling for Trinket Mage, which gets Rune Stalactite. It can also get... Unfortunately, none of the pingers are wizards. That's it.
Yeah, it's literally just a 1-to-1.
Huh. Oh, wait a second. No. Wizard Cycling works with these because these are wizards.
Oh, the changes them. Yeah.
Yep. So Amoeboid Changeling, the Blades of Velisfel, and the Wings of Velisfel. So the other card that they don't have then is the other one, the Vidalcan Aether Mage, which also does wizard cycling. That's pretty slick. I like that. This is all creature types at all times. So yeah, pretty cool. Fairly stock. Very focused. Okay, we had was that Dara or was that?
That was Joe.
That was okay. Cool. So let's exit out of these here. And we had a Dargo Ketis. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Another one of these.
I figured there's gonna be at least one of these.
Yeah. I figured after they won a tournament that we'd see this show up again. This is just balls to the wall aggro. You're gonna kill people with Dargo and a double strike spell. So you're gonna do your Buccaneers Bravado on Dargo with Ketis in play, and you double strike everybody dead. You find a player who can't block and you hit them, and that's it. You do have goblins that you can do other stuff with. There is somewhat of a backup plan here, but it's all about Dargo, and there's no way to protect Dargo. So it's not ultimately a list a commander pairing that I'm bullish on because of that. There just isn't any redundancy for Dargo, which is the game plan. Dargo can be recast fairly cheaply, but it comes at sacrificing your board, and you can only do that so many times as a mono red deck before you simply run out of cards. But it's one with a tournament, so my preferences may not ultimately matter all that much.
Also, given that mindset though, that a lot of the combo mid-range players, if Dargo isn't doing something immediately, it's not generally seen as any threat whatsoever. Even though, obviously, it can just smack a couple of times and win right from there,
or once,
or even once. Correct, of course. But I feel that, given that, because the whole Voltron mentality is still this is not going to do well. So I think a lot of the times people just go, it's whatever. Dargo's not going to do anything, or there's nothing on the Dargo itself, or it's not going to. Their board's gone now. They're not going to be able to recoup that itself. So people somewhat use that to their own disadvantages.
Yeah, they don't.
In the sense of that's where they're losing the mind.
Yeah. It's very much possible that you could lose to this deck because you lose track of it, right? And in the game that you and I played at the PDH Sanctuary PDH tournament. Um, the Dargo player was kind of like doing their thing without getting interacted with much at all, and that
Yeah.
was mainly because I was able to leverage them against everyone else by making a board that felt really bad to swing into. And I was like stockpiling cards in hand that I could use to deal with the Dargo. And what I ultimately ended up losing to was a combination of pingers from you, pingers from Dargo, um, and damage from Dargo that trampled over you onto me, which was kind of
Yeah.
wild.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, but still a cool, cool list, and again, very focused. It's very purposeful. Very low land count. You got some cards here that can produce mana, but most of them are just there to draw cards when they enter or die. So yeah, nothing super spicy or unusual about this list. This is definitely
Just mono red beats.
Yep, it's mono
Straightforward
red
kind of style.
Yep, yep. So that was That was Dara. Is that Dara?
That was Dara's.
That was Dara. Great. And then we had Grant Newbury on the Abdel Orzhov Abdel deck. And we reviewed this in the last live stream, but we'll do it real quick once over. A bunch of mana, a bunch of ETB creatures, a bunch of flickers, lands.
Yeah. It's just take the Abdel, the Azorius Abdel, and just swap it out for discard / edict effects, and there you go.
Am I the only person playing removal? It kind of feels like it. This feels like cEDH mentality, where you see on Twitter people going,
Yeah.
you just can play kill spells in your cEDH decks. If your deck loses to Draneth Magistrate, you can always just kill it, and people just don't, right? And it's kind of interesting because this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kill spells, 1, 2 sweepers, and then 2 edicts, and then Faceless Butcher.
Yeah, so then this the reason why I feel that
Not
that
that
it
light.
did so well, even though because they was facing the LSO core, and then the LE deck. So basically, it was like they were kept gaining their life back and forth, and that's what kept the two of them together. Like I feel if there was only one Orzhov-esque,
They just would have won.
They would have just done it right from the get go, and
Yep.
then with the amount of life they would have gained overall.
Yeah, poor Abdel player. It was Bobby on that one.
Bobby, yeah,
And,
Bobby was so pissed.
I mean, there was nothing he could do.
Yeah,
right?
he was just
I mean, he had Bloodseeker and Suture Priest just holding him down, and he was a low life total. So there wasn't much that they could do other than trying to clear those cards and then try to flicker off on their own, or if they were able to resolve something like a Dawnbringer Cleric that could be part of their flicker loop, and then they would outgain the terrain, and then they could go infinite because they had the cards to go infinite, right? They just didn't have the ability to do it because they don't have very much removal in their deck, and that's something that any deck can play. Just like a sufficient number of bounce and removal spells to like take care of that stuff. It's key. It's important to be able to do that. I've seen an Abdel with Candlekeep Sage. Isn't common backgrounds not legal? Yeah, Jen. Common backgrounds are not legal to play in the command zone, but this tournament had modified cPDH rules, where basically the common backgrounds were allowed to be played in the command zone. So yeah, that's what we saw there. Yeah, so that's why Candlekeep was a big part of it. There were, I think, a number of people playing it. But yeah. This player also did very well. I saw some games where they played, very well. I think there's ways to make this even more resilient, with a little bit more interaction that you can do. But what I do like here is, man, there's very few decks that abuse cards like Chain Devil and Faceless Butcher and your Alabaster Host Intercessor. Any ETB creature that attritions people's resources through discard as well. This is like the best deck I can imagine, other than maybe like Marsh Crocodile, for using the
Yeah,
ETB
this is the one
creatures.
that I was considering putting together for the event.
Yeah, this would have been a
Because
great choice too.
yeah,
Because look, like you're a combo deck ultimately, right? You have loops that involve, and this deck doesn't even have it actually. Um, but if you can combine Oblivion Ring, Journey to Nowhere, and what's it called? It's the 4-mana Tiefling Warrior. You can set up loops with that to flicker. So it's a combo deck that also has a very grindy game plan. Um, and so if you're, when you're a combo deck, the ability to discard cards from people's hands, it's acting like a counterspell, right? And I think that that's an unexplored bit of territory that we could see here in the future, is to see people playing around with that avenue of attack. So hey, Lobert, good to see you, buddy. Hope your stream went
Ew.
well. Glad to have you here. Hope everyone who came and joined us here is having a great evening. We're basically reviewing the decks from last night as a preamble into talking about Chris's deck, which he played Garna, and then talking about how those games went for him. So yeah, we talked a little bit about this Abdel deck yesterday, so we won't go too deep there. But we're just trying to get a sense of all the different things that were out there. Here's another Elasil core deck. Yep, we reviewed this one as well. This is the one by Heartless, I believe it is,
hmm
who's on this one. And this one was great. This, tons of removal, great land count, lots of drain and gain effects, tons of draw. This is a deck by my own heart. I love this. This just grinds into the sunset, and I love it. That's exactly the kind of drain, gain, and inflict pain again.
Yep.
You love it. That's very spicy. Dax Goes Face, evening, welcome. It was really good. Dax and I were really mean to one another. Okay, good, excellent. I hope everybody still had a good time. Wow, there's another Ellis here. Oh,
Yeah, so in total there was 5 Ellis decks.
wow.
Yeah. It was so I think the reason why Ellis was so heavily brought is
It
because
won
of
the
amount-
last one, right?
like it's because all the pingers more recently because of that very reason, and they're like, oh, well, I need to gain the life, so people just
Wow.
brought the easiest. And there was also a Cliffhaven vampire too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the thing is that these Orzhov pinging decks are a really good counter to the red pinging decks, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gaining with extort 3 every time you extort, your opponent has to do 3 pings to just get through that, right? And so you only need to do a third of the amount of pinging to stay really ahead. And yeah, Lobert said it right there. Pinger meta is real. We talked about this last night quite a bit. And here's another one, right? This is a Garna deck. This is also a pinger deck. It's just that it's in the command zone. And it pings real hard. Dax says it was a great game, just the aggro decks smacking each other. I lost. Cool. Good, good. It's good to lose. I've been losing a lot lately. It's awesome. Jin Shooting Star says that's a lot considering you can play Abdel Sage in the in Abdel. Yeah, yep. Yeah, this looks. How does this compare to your list right here?
So with that one, they added more gain control of target creature.
Okay,
and
good.
they try
Threaten.
to use that towards their advantage.
Got it. So they had Threaten, they had Mark of Mutiny, Bloody Betrayal. They had... Those are the main ones. And then they're using cards like Mind Extraction, and they're using... let's see, what else? Yeah, all these sack effects like your Village Rites, Costly Plunder, Deadly Dispute, Fake Your Own Death, Nasty End, to sacrifice their opponent's creatures and draw cards. That's really interesting. I mean, in Rakdos, that is a very fun and powerful pairing for an aggressive deck. Being able to use your opponent's creatures against them and then sacrifice them means that Mark of Mutiny, these threaten effects basically become the food category in my aristocrat decks, which is like you need food to feed certain effects, whether it's like sacrifice creatures, whether it's Ashnod's Altar, whether it's sacrificing to draw cards, whatever it might be. Those are cool because they're both food, meaning they're feeding your sacrifice, and they're removal. So seems like I play Gut Throne, and when I think about it that way, I could see myself cutting some amount of fodder for more threat and effects to do
Yeah, so that's
exactly
where a
that.
lot of that's where theirs different from mine. I did more of the spam the board with a lot of creatures to be able to block and
Yep.
control the state that way. Because I leaned heavily more towards doing the surprise tainted infect kind of
Yeah, the
style.
infect. Yeah.
I want because like I said, no one expected that literally at all,
Well,
and
and with
I
all the
just
life gain, I mean,
and that's the
that's
reason why I figured that life gain was going to be huge, and I tried to like use that towards my advantage. And also like when you play, when you're searching for something, it allows you to be like, okay, what am I gonna search for? And then you see, oh, they're searching for literally a tainted strike or a phyresis, and they're like, oh crap, that I did not see that coming, and
I
it lives a little more mystery to
I
itself.
gotta say, I it's not my favorite line of attack, but for the meta that you were going into and for what you anticipated, it's gasoline. It
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense because if you were planning for seeing, if you had foreknowledge, for example, that you were going to see 5 Ellis decks, that you're going to see multiple Abdel decks with tons of life gain, you would absolutely want to be doing something that makes that life gain not matter. And Infect
And
is
then I
one of
also
them.
try to use that as to my advantage in the sense of like, oh no, we're all getting really low in life, or oh no, they're really high in the life. Like, if someone were to get really high, oh, we got to make sure we focus on them now because I can't. Like I use it one of my games. I go, okay,
Yeah.
they're at 25. I can't do that. I can't bring them down any more than they already have. We need to focus. I need my you two right here to focus all your energy on that creature while I'm just slowly building the board up and up and up and
Up
up.
until you get to 10
To,
creatures, and
and then
then
once I
Tainted
get to 10,
Strike.
I just strike it, and then everyone dies instantly.
Wow, yeah. That's great politics. Yeah, definitely. And of course, they also have first day of class, Goblin Matron, Putrid Goblin here. They do not have. Oh, wow. So they're not playing Skirk Prospector. They're actually just focusing on like Viscera Seer and
Which I
Carrion
noticed those things
Feeder.
as well. Like it was, I felt like this is more just like a get some solid Rakdos stuff without getting like
Yeah,
more towards a specific theme. Where that's where mine led into the Skirk and the Mogs and everything like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Try to like clutter the board with almost as though it's a Goblin deck
Yep, yep.
and
Well, I
go from
mean,
there.
I think that's great because the combo is super tidy. Shred memory can tutor for first day of class. It can also tutor for putrid goblin, and it can tutor for bloodthrone vampire. So you've got the sack outlet, you've got the thing that needs to be sacrificed, and you've got the thing that puts the counter on the thing to make it go infinite. Um, it's also nice because Goblin Matron, and this is where I would have put in Skirk Prospector, is that Goblin Matron can tutor for Putrid Goblin, and it can also tutor for the Skirk Prospector usually. But there is no Goblin creature here that they're using to sacrifice. There's other ones you can do like Skirk Skirk. I can't remember the exact name, but you could also do something like Goblin Sledder or Mog Raider. But really, Skirk Prospector is where you want to be because you just make infinite mana, and then you cast your commander infinite times, as much as you need, and then sack your board and sack that creature over and over to deal infinite damage. But otherwise, like great land count, decent amount of not a huge amount of removal here, but
It was
enough
very little amount of removal at
at
that.
this
I feel
entire
like they
this entire tournament. Like not that much
yeah.
removal in general, man. It's like cPDH all over again.
I played tons of removal.
Yeah, you do. That's good.
I
It's the
tried to get as
responsible thing to do.
I felt that was the right direction to go.
Yeah, I mean it's important to be able to interact with what people do to win the game. Um, and don't play removal.deck where you just have nothing else but like 30, 40 removal spells. You just can't do that. You need to have
Yeah.
things that end the game. But a deck with like 20 pieces of interaction, like 10 kill spells and 10 counter spells, is perfectly reasonable. A deck with, a couple of sweepers, 15 kill spells, and some edicts, that's great too. That's really where I like to be. Because I just don't like to be stone cold dead to something. I don't like to have to beg people to not to kill me. It's like, it's nice to be able to just take care of myself. Like, I'm not going to
Very
die because I stopped the thing from killing me, as opposed to, you know, other forms of luring them elsewhere. Lobert says, the pinger meta is real. I've had zero success with threaten effects. You really have to care about the attack for it to be worth about playing sorcery speed. Yeah, so, and that's a good point. I would say Garna does care about the attack because you can turn that into card draw. And Gut, leader, cares about the attack. Gut Throne is what I meant. Gut leader does too. Gut leader also plays the mutiny, treason, threaten effects. But you're right. I think that it's really mainly for decks that care about attacking, because the haste is a big deal. If you don't have a creature in play that can attack with Gut, and you play Gut, maybe you play Gut and you have extra mana, maybe it died, but maybe your stuff is all gone, and you gain something and it gains haste, then it can be the thing that attacks to basically give Gut the ability to immediately make a skeleton token. Otherwise, you have to play Gut and then attack with Gut if you don't have anything else in play. So, cool. So was that Dylan or Brian? I've gotten a little bit.
No, that's Dylan's.
Okay, that's Dylan. Okay, got it. That's Dylan there. And then Vincent here on Blaze Commando.
Oh, this pissed me off.
Uh-huh.
No, so not to sound like a D, but before I even went into the match, I knew for a fact I was gonna win.
Yeah.
I was facing,
like, you've got removal. Like, what are they gonna do, right?
I was looking at this board state, and I go on the player pod. I go, there's an Izzet Guildmage. Cool, I get it. I can force all the aggro to that player using the blaze towards them.
Yeah.
There was a 5-color slivers. They're not gonna win. I already know that for a fact. Like, it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
They wanted to play it. Cool, sweet. Then I gotta figure out the Blaze Commando, it costs 5 mana. If I remove that one time, I pretty much have got it.
Yeah, I mean, and they actually, they have quite a bit of ramp in here and a lot of lands, which is responsible if you're gonna bring a 5 mana Boros Commander that doesn't draw cards. However, you will draw dead in a lot of games where you just have nothing else going because these cards don't draw cards. Your card advantage is that this has raised the alarm stacked onto every burn spell, but it's still not drawing you more cards. So yeah, I could totally see why you came in.
So reason why I messed it up, where's my 3-drop? So I was at 11 life, I believe it was. I had already got rid of the Izzet player myself. I got rid of the Sliver player on myself. Because I convinced everyone to go for the combo player. Like, that's what you gotta do.
It's reasonable.
Slivers eventually just kept bashing, and so I'm like, okay, I had to let them just burn their hand. It's perfectly fine, and then I'll just swing back and I'll win this one. It's gonna be super freaking simple. And I tapped my mana down. For whatever reason, I played a draw spell where you lose 2 life, and I kick it over back to them, and I realized I drew the exact card I needed. But unfortunately, I tapped my red mana like I drew a Skirk. So I was like, oh, damn it, I tapped the wrong mana down going into this. And then they go back to their turn, and they had killed Fiend on the board with Whisper Silk. So I'm like, okay, they have no cards in hand. The most they potentially, quote-unquote, can do is, like, a couple... Like, I'll still be within the good range.
Did they have any other creatures?
They had nothing. So I had 5 creatures on the board, or 4 or 5. I go, I 100% am going to get this. I have no problems at all.
Did they get Lava Dart?
They top deck a whatever has flashback.
There's Lava Dart. There's
It wasn't the dart. What the hell is it?
Was it Fireball or no? It's 1 mana, deal 2. Geist Flame.
So they top deck Geist Flame and were able to get the. They pinged me twice, bringing me down to 7, and with that, they were able. I was at 9, and then with the Kiln Fiend, it had exactly 7 damage.
Oh my god, that would have been so tilting.
I was so cause
Oh.
I knew that would have put me way higher in the rankings. I would have been top 16.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I go, son of a I literally
Oh no.
I'm like, there's no, cause I completely,
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
they
the
had no
only
cards in
out,
hand.
right?
Yep.
Like, I mean,
That was the literal only card they needed to
well,
draw.
Lava Dart would have done it
Other
too.
than the dart, yeah.
Or maybe a Pyromatics, maybe, because that's not casting though. You're making copies, so it wouldn't be that one. Fire Blast would have done it. Um,
Fire Blast. They used that to kill someone earlier.
oh, okay, so they didn't have it. Or Thunderous Wrath. Thunderous Wrath would have done it too, but
Yeah,
like
they that one
not
really,
much.
that one of the whole day
Oh.
really, because I drew, it was like flawless draw. Everything was control. The is it Guild Mage player 100% had the game
Yeah.
because they had infinite mana with Dramatic Reversal with Bonder's Ornament, so they had the infinite draw, infinite mana, everything, but they didn't see it. And then the other players that were there were like, "Well, you can do this." I go, "No, let them play. Let them play. Let them do this."
Wait,
Because like they
were other
weren't.
players at the table?
Yeah, so this is earlier in the game. This is like a turn 4 or 5,
Why?
where the Guild Mage player had had built the full combo and had the win. But that was the first time they were ever playing that deck, so they didn't know what.
Why were people telling them how to do the combo?
That's what I was like, guys. You like have like no, let them do this. Let them try to figure it out.
These were
So,
people
like,
at the table or people around?
like no, these were at the table itself. Like the opponents were telling the person who was gonna win what to do, and I'm like,
Oh.
please stop.
Don't like yeah, we're at a tournament here. Like, please don't help
And I
him
had
win.
to like, it was the player who was playing the Blaze. Now they had things in their hand where they were waiting for the Is It player to tap down fully. So they had the, like, I know where they were going. 'Cause I knew what they had, like, because they were like the way they were tapping their lands a certain way, like removing a mountain, like sacrificing a mountain. So I'm like, I know what they have, right? So the way it was, I'm sitting here, I'm like, you need to like just let them play. Because I knew I go, they have infinite draw with Bonder's Ornament. They have enough mana with the Dramatic Reversal to untap consistently, and they have the game. But they didn't see it. So I'm like, everyone, shh, stop, please.
Please don't do it. Do not tell him how to win unless.
Thankfully, I was able to like quiet everyone. I'm like, okay, good. You do you. Play your turn. And they tap. Thankfully, they eventually like just tapped out wrong. And I kept saying like, hey, does this? And we're done with this, right? We're done with that resolution. We're finished that. Because I knew if they saw it, they would
Yeah.
like, oh wait, I do have infinite untaps. I win the game.
Wow.
But thankfully they didn't. Like they said, that was like.
Yeah, that would be maddening.
That match irked the hell out of me.
Yeah,
I even told my girl, I'm like, okay, I got this. I have no worries. I know what I'm getting into. I have the right removal. I have the right control.
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to be getting into.
I mean, it like I feel like this kind of a thing happens though, right? Like that's the kind of mistake
Absolutely.
that's like we have to allocate in our in our calculations about how often we're going to win some amount of the time. Making innocuous mistakes, like even, maybe you're playing a deck that has, extort in it or something, and you're casting a draw spell with extort, and you use your black mana, and you have only of another color left because you want to extort. You think it's important.
Yep.
Without realizing that your outs that you are trying to draw into are red or they're white or something like that. Or they're black, right? And that's hard, like tournaments are grindy. There's a lot of games, there's a lot of players, there's a lot of stimulation, there's a lot of table talk. It's very intense. So, keeping your head screwed on right for the entirety of the game, through the entirety of the tournament, without dulling your enjoyment of the experience, is it's a tall order, right? Because the other thing is like I'm there to play Magic and have fun. This is like in the end, it's a game, and yeah, I'm gonna like try and test myself. I'm gonna try and win. But I don't want to drain all the suck all the fun out of it by being a big spike or something. So yeah. Well, this is very interesting. I think any given Sunday is what I'll say about this commander. Um, on any given Sunday in Pauper Commander, a deck like this, which is
Can't do it.
it can do it. And
Yeah.
I will say, to the credit of this player, they built it very responsibly. 36 lands. They have a lot of lands here that can cycle to draw cards. They put Campus in here. They have the Boros Garrison to pick up their Secluded Step. They have life gain with Soul Warden. They have life gain with Seeker of the Way. They had pingers. They even had Ardent Elementalist to pick up their spells and recast them. They had
all
value
the pieces,
spells.
It was there.
And like, look at this, the ramp too. You know, we have like a really good suite of ramp. This commander suffers from a number of problems, but if you were going to take it to a tournament, this is probably very close to what I would want to play. So big props on Squirrel Lord here. This was this Dylan?
Yeah.
Dylan. Okay, cool. Let's go on to Vincent's deck here. Another Blaze Commando deck.
Oh no, that was Vinny.
No, that's
that was
okay.
Vinny.
That's Vincent.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, what? No way. And then we had Alex here, who was on Erg.
I know.
Equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. Sacrifice a land, gain 2 life. Interesting. It is 5 toughness black creature.
This isn't the most confusing one out of the whole games that were there. There's another one which we'll get if we get deep into the list that really confused me as to why it was played in a sense. But this was just trying to just get value out of value.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. Yeah, there's like kind of some. Let's see here. I'm just trying to see if I'm missing something here. Wow, we get some really interesting cards here too, like Shrink.
Yeah, this was an odd one. I wish I saw it get piloted, and like what pod it was in. Like to hit top 16, like they clearly were doing something, you know.
I'm not seeing it.
That's why I'm not seeing. I don't get it.
Well, but this does, right, because it's a little bit scattered, right? We have cards like Thought Vessel, Commander Sphere, Arcane Signet, along cards like Sakura Tribe, Scout, and Elvish Rejuvenator, and Elvish Mystic. So we have cards that are putting lands into play, cards that are tapping for mana, creatures that are tapping for mana, creatures that are ramping, but not putting cards into the graveyard.
So I think a part of what they're trying to do, because they have Tortured Existence in the Scion, I think they're basically just trying to use the quote mill effects to just dump things into their bin, use the value of life gain from Urg, and then just try to smack with Giant Beater for quote unquote potential like commander damage.
Okay. You know,
that's where I think this is going.
I also, my thought here is that it's quite possible this is like a player who's pulling from like their draft chaff.
Just a box play, yeah.
Right, because there's a lot of things going on here that don't really work with each other, like the and like a choice of a card like Quirion Elves over, you know, something that's maybe more efficient, cheaper, as well as cards like Commander Sphere, which if you're in black, you don't need to run Commander Sphere for card draw. You can just run good card draw, and then the Commander Sphere can be something like a green ramp spell.
They had a buy.
They had a buy? Okay. Oh, so that probably got it. So they had a buy.
Yeah, because round 1 they lost, round 2 they lost, round 3 they had a buy, round 4 they lost, and that's it. So they literally reason why they have 3 points is
this is this says it all. This is the the Dash Hopes is a card that never does what you want it to do. If a player doesn't have 5 life, then you don't deal 5 damage to them, which is what you want to do. You want to kill them. And if they have 5 life, then you're not going to counter the spell, in which case it's the definition of a Punisher card. It is the worst Punisher card probably I can imagine. You know, I do love seeing Darkness in here, which is great. But yeah, you know, this player's this is looks like a pile of draft chaff that maybe it doesn't have the things tying it together. But still, they placed well, so maybe they're just a really talented player who is challenging themselves with something more underpowered. Was that Vincent there? No, that was Alex, right?
No, that was
Alex.
Alex.
Okay, then we had Rob. A pirate looks at 40, and Malcolm Dargo.
Yeah.
Clay would be very pleased. We have pingers. We have ways to make things into pirates. We have removal, counter spells, draw spells. This is pretty traditional.
That's like OG classic Malcolm Dargo.
Yep, 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 yeah. Even there's not a whole lot of ramp here, and a pretty low land count. So I suspect that if Dargo or if Malcolm dies, you have a hard time recasting it. But we have 2 rocks, 32 lands, just Lorien revealed. So a little bit skimpy there, but everything here is what you would expect out of a Malcolm deck. Cards like Thunderclap work really well when you're making land drops 3 a turn with Malcolm. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so that was that. So that's our top 16 here. Was there anything else past that? You've gone through all the lists, right? Was there anything else worth looking at?
There was a Fairgrounds Trumpeter.
What?
Yeah. I got who played it.
What is fair?
It's whenever a counter is put onto a creature, put a counter onto that.
Oh, here's the Slivers deck. Oh my.
The Sliver one is literally just I like slivers. Let me just throw stuff together.
It's every sliver in the format in the same deck, which the best thing about slivers is in 4 cards: Muscle Sliver, Plated Sliver, Predatory Sliver, and the last one is the white 2-mana one, which I'm forgetting. It's Sinew Sliver. These cards are the best slivers in existence. And once you get past those, most other slivers aren't that good. However, I will say that if you're willing to pay 4 or more mana, you get cards like Cleaving Sliver and Bone Splitter Sliver, which do hit pretty hard. And slivers that are big, when you have cards that give them power, get a lot bigger. We're kind of used to seeing slivers in Pauper, where it's like a 2-mana 1/1 that gives itself power and it gives everything else a power. So it's a 2-mana 2/2 that's a lord. But cards like this, they pair really well with slivers that are larger than 1/1 that have keywords instead of buffs.
Look up,
a lot of lands. Oh my God, 40 lands. One of the things I would say to this player is that when you play Sphinx of the Guild Pact, you get a couple of things that come easily alongside it. And one of them is Rush of Knowledge. If you play Rush of Knowledge with Sphinx of the Guild Pact, you draw 7 cards for 5 mana. Because Sphinx is 7 mana. So I think cards like Ponder, Preordain, this looks like very hard to make work. There's just so much going on here.
They had stuff. They had a couple of beats, but so their Gemhide Sliver, when I faced them, they blocked with it and let it die instantly.
Oh, that's not what you want to do. You don't know, the Gemhide Sliver in this deck is the most important card you could ever draw. It's so important. Oh man. Yeah. So
the next one you want to look at right now, which you'll think is hysterical, is Rhiannon's deck.
Okay.
It's Bird Tribal.
Bird Tribal, Electric Boogaloo, up and away with a Purian Eagle. I actually like this commander.
I think so. This one actually did some significant impact where people were like, "What the hell is happening right now?"
Yeah, I love cheap white and blue flyers. I build entire decks around cards like that, and the fact that this makes them big bigger is cool. Um,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, Warden of Evocile is kind of an iconic one, making your flying creatures cheap. It discounts Aarakocra Sneak, which is great. Um, this looks disciplined. The nice thing is that because you have flyers, cards like Frogify, Casmina's Transmutation, they don't have it here, but like you have the Witness Protection and the Reprobation they don't have. But those cards become really good when you are never going to attack them and take them off of the reprobation. Because the problem with reprobation is that you put it on somebody's creature, and then if they become the problem and you want to kill them, you can't attack them because you're going to unlock their commander. You want to put an aura on somebody that you aren't going to hit, or or when you have evasive creatures. And so this deck gets to play all of them, and you can see that they did. Ichthyomorphosis, which could actually just be Deep Freeze, is just a much better version of this. But Deep Freeze, Stasis Field, Casmina's Frogify, Witness Protection. They could have Reprobation as well. I would actually go even a step further, and I would be playing the Impetus cards in this too. And just like have your opponents hitting each other, right? Put Spectral Grasp, Martial Impetus in this deck. If you put it on a Healer's Hawk, your entire board is getting another Anthem every turn as well, which is pretty spicy. So you can put it on your own stuff, you can put it on your opponent's stuff. But yeah, and then Skybinder Staff makes something unblockable in this deck. Can't be blocked by creatures with flying, and all of your creatures have flying. So you can't block my stuff. Cool. Bone Splitter is great here. Do they have Trinket Mage to go find it? They do not.
No, this is just, in all honesty, just a bunch of good flyers.
Yep.
In all honesty.
Yeah, they have.
Their synergy was flying.
Lofty Denial, Winged Words. These are great. They have a lot of birds in here. They could also be playing, some of my favorite spells, which are Airborne Aid. Draw a card for every bird in play. But they've got Gust of Wind here too, Battle Screech. This is sweet. Oh, they have it, Airborne Aid. There it is.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Yeah, no, you're right. I do love this deck. This is great. I actually don't even think this is a meme. Flying is one of the best.
This is like an actual it generally the pod that it like, because I forget, I think it was Simon was telling me, he's like, yeah, there was a bunch of birds. I know that the whatever his name, the Chum Guzzle, like he had faced the pod and he was like, what the hell just happened?
I mean, they even have Peregrine Drake. Why? Because it's a free 2/3 flyer, so it's a free 3/4. Like, that's so fucking awesome. I love it. Yeah. And they have the Dawn Feather Eagle, and the Amoeba here. This is great. Yeah, I love it. Love it, love it. Very cool deck. Well done. This was Rachel's. No, it was Rhiannon.
Rhiannon's.
Okay. Any others here?
So the other one, the last one you want to look at is that Morgan's deck.
Yeah. Let's take a look at this.
It's the Fairgrounds Trumpeteer.
Okay. Let's see what this is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
At the beginning of each end step, if a +1/+1 counter was placed on a permanent you control, put a +1/+1 counter on this. Okay.
It's a Hardened Scale style, almost like Commander-esque, trying to use.
Fascinating. I mean, it's an elephant, so by even just looking at this, we're summoning the pals.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, like, why not Conclave Mentor?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think that's the direction they're going in, but
maybe they just don't know about this commander. Huh?
They might. But like you have to know about Fairgrounds. So you have to know about Conclave if you played Fairgrounds.
This might have been a pals meme. That's possible. But like, did it do good things? Like, this isn't organized by mana value, but we can do that. Sort by mana value. Okay, so like, I see all of the good. Yeah.
It had a reasonable low curve.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's a curve that
Let's see how they did it in the games.
It's a nice ski slope curve here, going down. How many wins did they put in? Was this Morgan? They put in 3 points, so they won one game.
No, they had a bye.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of the people.
Got it.
The unfortunate truth to this is a lot of people who are higher up on the numbers had buys, because you got 3 points
Got it.
automatically if you had a bye instead of getting 1 point. That's the one thing about this that I'm not a fan of. You got the
Mm-hmm.
win if you had a bye.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Which I was under the impression that the software didn't reward wins, didn't reward buys the same way as wins. But
Yeah,
it
because
looks like
Morgan
it
technically
did.
lost it, and that's the because like
So
Morgan, for example, didn't win a single game, but they got 3 points.
right. Okay. So then if we go back to page 1 here,
So if we take out
turn.
everyone's points, I'm gonna do this later tonight / tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take out all the points of those who actually got 3 points from the bye, and switch it from 3 points to 0 and from 3
And
points
see
to
what
1,
happened. Yeah.
and see what the change is.
Yep.
Like a draw, cool. Everyone should get a point for a draw. That
Yep.
makes perfect
Yep.
sense. But to get 3 points for a bye, that just doesn't seem quote unquote fair, in my opinion. Like literally,
Yeah. Well, and
this like
it's like
Morgan's higher than me, but again, like they didn't, you know.
it's kind of interesting because it's almost like, when you're granting 3 points for a win, there's no way to split the difference on that feels right. Because
Yeah,
if
I
you
know.
give them 2 points, then they're actually doing better than their average for the game. Like in general, we should be winning 1 in 4 games, right? On
Correct.
average.
Yeah.
And if you give a person 2 points instead of 3 for a bye, then they're actually getting out ahead on averages, right? Because they're not likely to win that game if everybody is the same. And if you give them 1 point, then they're only getting a third, which is still actually better. So if you ever get,
I think up points the best because that's the equivalence of making a draw, and a good amount of tables came to the draw / turns.
that's
So
rather
I
interesting.
think that would have been the best overall value for what was given.
Yeah. Oh, here's another Ellis deck. Wow.
There's a good amount of people just won because of draws, because of buys.
Right. And it's interesting. This is another tournament where we're seeing like a mixture of like decks that are intended to be, that are like very like purposeful and competitive, and then commanders and decks that maybe are a little bit lost in the sauce, right? Something like the frog deck, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a mixture like that. Whereas if you were to show up to like a modern tournament or something, everybody is there with something very like lethal and dangerous.
So reason it really like irks me a little bit
Mm-hmm.
is because someone had donated, which thank you for whoever did. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
They donated $500 to span out between 5th place and 16th place. So people
Whoa.
were in this case, you're showing up with a deck that literally, quote unquote, depending on the meta, like the games, of course, would not expect to win. So in a sense, you're getting the win, and now you're getting paid for doing nothing. It's just a weird.
It's kind of an interesting dynamic. Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Well, and it's something that the main thing is that we got really good turnout with the event, but it is interesting that the tiebreakers, if you have 3 points for a draw or for a bye, that's really rewarding. That's probably too much.
And there's no control to the buy either. It's like it just can happen.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate when you get a bye because then you're being denied the opportunity to win. So if you're a very good player, you're losing out on that opportunity to win in that pod. Lobert said with the turnout being 39 people, 3 people getting 3 points every round means that 3 of the 12 people that gets wins. Let's see. So with the turnout being 39 people, 3 people getting 3 points every round means 3 of the 12 people that get wins.
Throws the data. Yeah.
That throws off the data.
It a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, that makes sense. The only solution is to have employees fill out pods or something. Yep. And that's like, it's a hard thing to beat. I think the only thing that they could improve on here that you've done a good job of identifying is that people who got buy points got rewarded rather richly
Yeah.
for
Like they
that.
basically like they got their ticket back for free
Yeah.
because they just happened to be in that set. Like if I knew going
Hmm.
into this that they were gonna get 3 points, I would have just had my wife buy a ticket and then just join those pods
Yeah.
and just take the L automatically.
Just take the L. Right.
Just take the L. That way they have to actually do
Yep.
their battle,
Yep. Yep.
so it's a fair result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. That's all
Because I'm
reasonable.
gonna do the numbers and see if they how drastically they change if things were to
Right.
change the points.
So, and it is telling, to see that there's like this frog deck, for example, or the trumpeter deck, alongside something like Ross, playing this incredibly lethal TPI deck with like a lot of different ways to win the game right away. Um, yeah, right. Surprise, it's a 1v1.
But that also, Laura,
Exactly.
like that was my thought. Like that's not a bad idea. Like even if it's a pot of 3 people,
Yeah,
cool. Just
yeah,
have the 3 people.
yeah. Still play the 3 people. Yeah, I think
Even
that's
a
better.
1v1, it's
It's
not going to be nearly the same of an outcome in a way, like
Yep.
the way you're going to play it. But it's still at some point in the game you become a 1v1.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like multiplayer games usually devolve into a one. Well, sorry, PDH generally devolves into a 1v1 anyways.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
just how it often is. So better than them sitting out. Yeah, better than them sitting out, and better to do that than to like grant extra points to people who who didn't win games, right? And it's not to like to push them down. It's just that like giving 3 points when you get a buy
The bot, yeah.
is it shouldn't be rewarded the same as a win, because you're getting essentially like triply rewarded for your odds of winning. Your odds of winning are 25%, and you get full credit for the buy. Getting a buy sucks, but I think they could offset that too just by having some 3 pods. And 3 pods are weird. There are decks that like 3 pods. If you're playing a commander that does commander damage, you like
Sure, yeah.
3 pods. If I'm playing a control deck, I like a 3 pod as well. There's definitely if you're playing combo, you probably don't want a 3 pod because everybody's gonna kill you. And so there's that. So what the next thing I wanted to cover here is, so your 4 rounds, what
Mhm.
were they? I think you've talked about the Gretchen one. You talked about the one with the Eudora. That was the same game, right? What were your
Yep.
rounds 3 and 4?
Round 3 was the 2 Ellis decks with what the hell is her name? Allura Agent. They were trying to use like unblockable, indestructible kind of styles to try to like Voltron / control the board state. I was able to. They weren't really doing anything, so I was able to control that. But the 2 Ellises, they were said that was their first time ever playing. One player it was brand new to everything. His partner was there, so him and his partner were both playing Ellis decks.
Yep.
The other LE player is normally a Pokemon player,
Okay. Yep.
so I guess they were new to it. So that I feel like that pod was more likely for me to win that one. But the problem is the LE player to my left, they top decked Gary,
Oh yeah.
and they were able to get me down to a life total. I'm like, okay, cool. I still have the win, but it all depends on what their next draw is going to be. If they get any creature, because they had Ellis and Epicure Blood in the field, so they just need a creature
To kill
to
you.
gain that one life,
Oh.
and then they have exactly enough damage to go through. They top deck a creature. That one I was like, it's more likely to happen that they're going to have a creature
Yeah.
in their Ellis
Yeah.
deck, so I was like,
Yeah.
it's more likely to occur. So it wasn't as much of a feel bad. But that's the one where I played the persist creature. I did the scarecrow in that one, just to like try to like elude people from what I'm doing in a sense.
Yep.
And that's when I was like, no, I yes, 100%. I have this as part of my combo, because that's when the Allura player was like, hey, this is their combo. Like this is what we need to do. Like we need to now go after the Garna player, because that is how they win the deck. And I had the other card. I had the other card in my hand, but I was 1 mana short from winning on that turn. So I'm like, I need to convince them, no, I'm not the target right now. Like, hey, this is not how it's gonna go. Like I was like, the way I had it set up is I had the Allura player, no matter what they did, they were dead. So they were trying to convince the two Ellis players to kill me to have a 1v1 with each other because he knew he had no opportunity
Oh,
to win because he was trying to use pestilence because he had pestilence to try to control the board state.
right. But he,
But if my creatures die, he's gonna lose life, and on top of
I
the
mean,
pestilence damage,
it
so he
sucks and
had
it
no
feels
out.
bad.
Yeah.
But you also, like, when you're in a position like that, you need to just accept that you are going to lose, and that any chance of you not losing involves you probably doing nothing.
And so that's what he ended up doing. He ended up after like a good like 3 to 5 minute turn of like, well, what if I do this? That's not gonna work. If I do this, that's not gonna work. He's just like, I'm doing nothing. So he
Good,
did the right play.
good.
He 100% did the right play. He goes, I'm just gonna pass my turn
Yep, just pass the
because
turn.
he knew
You don't know what's gonna
that nothing
happen,
he did.
right?
Yeah.
There. Like I've had games where I've done that, and I've like conceded to losing the game because my position was very bad, um, and unexpected things happened. I didn't force them to kill me. That's the thing you never want to do. And there's a lot of this shit that I see out there, which is don't be this person. Don't be the person who says I have to make you have it when the
Yeah.
onboard things that they have can kill you right away.
So the biggest thing
Because
I
that's
read Clay's article
yeah,
about king making like the day before. So I was like,
don't be
okay, I
that
gotta keep.
person.
Don't be that person.
Don't be that
Yeah.
person. Because the thing is that you end up forcing the player to expend resources on you when it's going to end the game. So especially with pingers, right? Pingers are an important way that that happens. And so the way that you would survive if you're dead on board to pingers is by waiting to see if the other players will kill that player, and then if they go to try to kill you in response, you say you really shouldn't do that because that's not changing whether you live or die. Like
Yeah.
don't take me out of the game because you're going with it. That's not competitive to take other people out of the game when you don't have a chance of winning anymore. So you just want to sit there, lay low, see what
And just let it
happens,
happen. Yeah.
let it happen. And there's like maybe a 10% chance that you don't die. And then because you've been sitting there and drawing cards and not doing anything, you can win the game. Um, I had a game like this recently. I won at 1 life with Crackling Drake. I had to fade a lot of good draws from my opponents. And I was getting clapped the whole game. My Crackling Drake had died 4 times. Like it had landed, drawn a card, and died 4 times in a row. And I was just like, I am getting absolutely abused right now, and like just murdered. And it was smart because the Passageway Seer player was gaining so much life that I was the only player at the table that could reasonably threaten like commander damage on them. So they were oppressing me because of that. But I just laid low as well as I could. I made some agreements at the table, said like, hey, they're killing my thing because they don't care about your stuff. They don't care because they're at 45 life, right? They know that my Crackling Drake is the only thing that's going to keep them in the game. So I need you guys to keep me alive so that I can one-shot him. And they did. And then I just had to fade some good draws, and I managed to, but it was awesome. And so yeah, you just gotta sit there and do nothing sometimes.
Just let it happen.
Yeah, just let it happen. Yep, let it happen. Okay, so let's talk about your Garna deck here. What did you? Is this the list you played here?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, Rags to Riches. Cool. Okay. So what did you pick up from playing this deck? Because Brew Bear and I did a Let's Build, what feels like many, many months ago, on Garna Bloodfist of Keld, and we built it as a very aggressive deck. And so what I want to do is look at your deck, hear what you have to say about it, share your thoughts with us, what you would do differently if there are any changes you would make, and then we'll compare the two to take a look and see what we come up with.
So, biggest thing is like I had a lot of removal in this, in a sense of like the sulfur snuff, breath. I removed maybe only keep one or in the Olaf of itself. Even the Evan cards, I think I was like thinking 4 or 5 total removal options, and it just like seems like a lot. I think leaning more towards that very, very aggro style, but still potentially leaving my Tainted Strike and Pestilence option. I mean, Vibrations option will be like a neat, like, why not? it didn't. The thing is, like, the way it played, I drew like shit the first 2 games, so like it didn't really play out. Once it started going, it was running beautifully. I would add more tokens in it, like add a lot more tokens. Like I said, throwing the goblin as like a main priority, I think would do a lot. Empty the warrens, I should have got rid of that. I should have thrown that in last minute. I really only didn't. I got a couple of turns where like I could get 4 off of it. But I'm like 4 for 4. Like it's not bad.
Yeah, it's like it's like Hordling Outburst, but
it's the same thing as everything else. Just like not really doing much.
Yeah.
I think just putting a lot more just overall tokens into it, it would just be able to span the board a little bit better.
Yeah.
Do add in raid bombardment, add a pack attack, just to get a little more aggressive to like try to bring people down while I'm waiting for it itself. Plus also with the fact that we have Nadir Nightblade and the Mirkwood now.
Yeah.
They themselves.
Yeah, you want
did
tokens.
A lot of work for me.
Yeah, these cards are insane. They're really strong. Life gain paired with enter and sacrifice on this one, whereas this is just leaves the battlefield. These are so strong. Yeah, you also have a Death Greeter in here, which helps offset what other people are doing through the death triggers. So whenever any creature is put into graveyard from play.
Yeah, so the Death Greeter, the first game, because I was me, the Garna, Satyr, and the Gormod deck. The Death Greeter kept the game, did so much. I had it turn 1, and it just held up the entire game. The game 1 ended up in a draw. Then game 2 through 4, basically, like I said, game 2 should have been a draw. Besides the stupid ass top deck.
Yep.
But top deck aside, like I felt the deck did very, very well. I'd say it maybe needs to take out like 5 to 8 cards.
Okay.
To like fine tune it. I think doing like leading a little more to like Brewbear in yourselves deck where it is a little bit more aggro can help a good chunk of change. I threw more removal in the sense I thought I was gonna be facing more Abdel decks and more and then TPIs. So I threw in more like sweepers of that sense.
Yep. So you've got Evan Carr's Justice.
That it was gonna have that.
So Justice,
and they did
Drown.
work, but that pushed people to like really try to counter those spells. So it did what it was supposed to do when it was needed, but I didn't face that many decks where like the amount I played was the value of which that it was included to be.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so let's take a look and compare these two decks. They are going to be very, very different here. So we're going to go Garna.
Also, I had 15 lands in game 1 somehow.
Oh, that's so many.
Yeah.
Yep, so we have 54 cards different. This is an aggro deck that has a backdoor combo in it. Whereas yours is interesting. It's the way you play it is as a mid-range deck.
Correct.
The cards in it do not suggest that it is that, because while you do have more removal than you did add more removal, you have you still don't have enough to be really like a mid-range deck.
Like the reason why I did it this way is to more so try to like persuade people with the words. And I felt as the day progressed, I got very, very good at it. Like when I was talking to Paul after Detroit, that was the biggest conversation we were having. Is like explaining how, even when I talked to him afterwards, like it's the conversation you have with the other players on the board at any moment can determine whether or not you win. And even though like my deck is not super, super aggro, the whole point I was trying to feel is like just do a bunch of dirtling almost, like throw a bunch of tokens out there, remove a couple things, have the option to do like Feign Death or Corrupted Convictions to like get some more value out of it. Show people, hey, look, I can do the end of combat tricks. Like nothing that's gonna really scream like this is the threat.
Yep.
And then while that's building up on like turn 6 or turn like late 5, early 6 style, then try to just go immediately into a win.
Right. So one of the things you'll notice with this Garna deck is that it actually has no removal.
Which I didn't notice with yours in a sense. Like I had considered leaning more in towards like I said a minute ago, like, I assumed I was gonna be facing tons of TPI and Abdel decks, which when I faced the TPI, the board wipes worked flawlessly. They put so much threat. Also, when I faced the Gormod deck, it was a Sulphurous, Breath, and an Evan cards. I played all of them.
Oh my
And
god.
It like really kept like.
I mean, they all kill Tormod as well as all of Tormod's things. That's one of the sad things about Tormod.
It really forced the interaction from them to like dump their hands with everything.
I would say that this deck occupies a place of being a thought experiment.
And that's what it really mainly is, in all honesty.
Yeah, because it's like balls to the wall aggro that doesn't actually have like any meaningful removal other than makeshift munitions. It is also quite a bit more dedicated to the combo, and it's built to basically like to draw a ton of cards off Garna while dealing a ton of damage. It is solely focused on that. There is a middle place between what you're doing and what I'm doing, using some of the new cards that I think we should explore. So let's go back and take a look at yours, because yours is actually going to have updated cards from the latest sets. So what we'll do here is we'll compare. Let's go. We're actually going to make my page the main one here and compare to the two. So we'll go here, copy this URL, bring it over here, go to compare, enter in the link, and compare. Okay, because then we can bring in cards from yours. Okay, so we're going to bring in Oliphant, and we're going to bring a Troll of Khazad-dûm. These are just lands. Those are perfectly reasonable. I like the Ashnod's Altar. That seems to do a lot of work in your deck. We are going to add removal, so I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, we can play some amount of stuff that gives us life loss, but it's a little scary, right? Because we don't have like a ton of life gain, right? Death Greeter seems fine. It's not very aggressive. Nasty End is great with Garna. Mirkwood Bats, Dimir Houseguard, Grim Initiate, Unearth could be in there just as a draw spell. Maybe we play Arms of Hadar because it only hits our opponents. Bloodseeker is amazing. I don't know if I want to do the Infect route. I see what you're doing there.
That's very, very like fringe.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I
like so personally, like when it comes to it, I like the Tainted Strike option.
Yep.
Given the fact of like it could be used as
on another player.
On another player.
Yep. 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 That's definitely a thing you can do. Oh, Corrupted Conviction we want in there as well. Yeah, it's interesting. In the games that I've played with you, I've never seen you get really priced out of Garna because Garna is not dying, which is wild. Because when I've played Garna, it's garnered a lot of hate. You know, there's
and that's what I tried to avoid. Because the reason why I really knew that was like I played the Weaver Twins in Detroit, and my
you didn't want that again.
24/7 they were being touched.
Yeah,
and I did not want. I'm torn right now. So I really like Gut Agent. I like that a lot. So I feel like
Gut Agent's like very good choice right now. Yeah.
That's where my direction's probably gonna end up, going from Garna to a Gut Agent deck, more likely than not.
Yep. That's a good call.
But I wanted to try because I've been playing the Garna a lot lately, so I really knew how to play it out really well. So I wanted to be more. I decided to bring something way more comfortable than trying to be like I know how to. I can do a Gut Agent. I can figure it out. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I just knew that this one I knew what I was doing without even like looking.
Right,
almost.
Right, exactly. So basically, what I want to do is take this Garna deck and make it mid-rangey, because, and maybe what we'll do is we'll make a mid-range version of this. So let's duplicate this and go here. Okay, so cards like Raid Bombardment we probably don't need.
So like so my original list had every single like the Raid Bombardment, Pack Attack, all those cards were in my original list when I first started building the Garna, but I wanted to say, like, if I do that route, then I'm being just straight gut, like a gut leader deck, where like I'm just pushing, and then it's drawing an immediate target. Where like the gut leaders are doing initially is like, hey, look, I'm playing a bunch of stuff. At that point, I'd rather just go play gut leader. You
Yeah,
know?
right, right. I need to make sure I have the tags here as well. So I had to restart that one. Okay, so let's go here, mid range, and then boom. Yeah, because we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing in Garna that is better than Gut Throne? And
Correct.
what we're doing here is we're drawing cards. We have the ability to ping the table, but what we're doing is drawing cards. And that was actually what Brewbear and I had worked on originally, is that we wanted to turn this into a really powerful card advantage engine in an aggressive deck. And so I think what we can do is slow the aggression a little bit, focus more on pingers, and then focus on drawing a lot of cards. And I think we have a lot of good ways to do that now. I think we still keep the first day of class combo in here because first day of class, Putrid Goblin, and Ring Rattle Scarecrow are all reasonable cards in the deck already.
Even on their own, it's still
They're just fine.
So.
They're 2 bodies on 1. That's all we want from our cards. So so one of the things we're going to want here is let's make sure we get all of the 1 mana cards that produce a body when they die. So help me find which ones we're missing here. It would be MV equals 1, type creature, O token, O creature. So yeah, the Harried Spear Guard.
There's a couple. There's more. It's more focused on the 2 mana thing. I know there's Shambling Nest.
Yeah, Shambling Ghast is going to make a treasure, which I don't think is good enough for our uses because we want bodies. Grim Initiate. Yep. The Harried Spear Guard is a new one that I'm pretty excited about. We could... Because basically the way these read is that each one of these is going to draw a lot of cards. Oh, the new Rat Catcher trainee, making 2 black rat creature tokens and then casting this. It's 3 bodies on 1 card. We have the Goblin Instigator, the War Marshal. This Discordant Piper, when it dies, makes a 0/1, which is not very good. The Doomed Dissenter actually gets upgraded when it dies, which is cool. This Death Knell Berserker, if we had a better way to give this a power, I would like that, but we don't. Something like the Aether Chaser and the Ether Poisoner are interesting because these are going to make the body while you attack. So they don't need to die to make 2 bodies, right? So those seem pretty good. And then what about 3 here? Let's see about 3. Oh, didn't we get a bunch of let's see, O2, mana value 2. We got new token makers, Rally at the Hornburg. We got Rowl's reinforcements and then the rat catcher trainee. So we have some better token makers there. And then let's go back here and we'll go to here and go MV equals 3. And Lobert, I know a while ago you asked about Goblin War Party and I got distracted. So if you're still here, it's kind of expensive, but it does stuff. Yeah, Goblin War Party could be reasonable. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we could consider. Oh, look at that. If we focus on goblins, every time you attack, this thing makes a token that's a tapped and attacking that sacrifices itself at end of combat.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I think that's the biggest. That's how we make this mid range. Like you just don't try to make that like the same conversation we've had about the whole the Seward Witch.
Yep.
It's like you just don't want to be that tall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you keep yourself very low to the ground when it comes to power, and then just basically like, oh, I'm just poking you with a couple little 1/1s over and over and over again. The only reason why I'm doing it, and you use that to your advantage with conversations, like, oh, I don't care if it dies. I'm just swinging at you just so I
Yeah.
want to draw cards.
Well,
And
and
more often than not, I would swing into people, and it just threw them from a loop. They would have a blocker that could easily block the 1/1, and I go, I'm only doing this to draw. So whether you like block it or not, I'm still gonna find a way to draw. And
yep.
people didn't realize it till after they took the 1 damage, and
Yes.
they're like, oh, I could have just blocked
You
it and
could have
then
just
not
blocked
have to
it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that a lot of that came into play because people are like, oh, it's only 1 damage. It's not gonna really hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be difficult to know exactly how you're supposed to respond to those things. Let's throw Oliphant into the lands here. Troll of Khazad-dûm into the lands. I don't even know that we want artifacts in this deck.
Yeah, I was probably gonna
So,
take them out because I didn't really feel.
like the ramp,
Yeah.
if we're playing mid-range Garna, we don't really want to be ramping into Garna because Garna is it is a part of our game plan that is important, but we don't want to be like launching it out there. We want to be producing all these bodies, and then once Garna is in play, we're going to protect some instant speed, supernatural stamina effects, swing in with these things, and draw a gazillion cards.
Yeah, like I would just leave like maybe like the arcane signet just to have like the 1, but everything else, even like the mindset of like more things are colored pips, like in a sense, so it's like not really getting. It's a free sack outlet. That's the only real reason it's there.
Yeah,
more often
there's a
than not,
lot
I
of
didn't really
other
feel
there's a lot of other cards that do that too, though. Like the Bogart
exactly.
and Dragonheart is one. That's another thing we'll have to look at here. Are there other free sacrifice cards that we don't know about? We're definitely going to bring in the Dimir House Guard. This card tutors for so many good things. And if we're going more mid-range, do we want the initiative?
So I've been up back and forth about the initiative because one, obviously, it's really really good.
It's just really strong.
But it's a matter of like taking up that slot. Do I feel like taking up that slot? You know?
I could see the 4-mana ones, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I would rather it would be the 4 mana over the 5. So I know
Yeah,
that for
the Stirring Bard gives haste and menace to creatures, while also, I think that's strong. Being able to give things the ability to attack right away means that we can draw more cards off of them. The Vicious Battle Rager is also a good attacker that's not all that easy to block, and they're both 4 mana. So I could see us playing both of these, but maybe not much more than that. In terms of our sack creatures here, we have Goblin Chirurgeon, which can work with Putrid Goblin as the sack outlet. Hobble Fiend. Do we have any other better creatures that sacrifice it for free since this came around? I don't think we have. It's not a very common effect.
That's what really hit me in the Ellis game is.
Yeah.
I had the combination, but the problem is, I had Lampet out, and Lampet costs 1 generic mana to activate it, and that's the reason why it let me stay in for a very very long time. But the problem is because it costs that 1 generic to cast, it literally messed me up.
Yeah,
You know?
that makes sense. Bloodseeker, I think, is a card that we're going to want in the deck as well, just because it's so punishing on people's life totals. Seems a very good card. So what are the cards that we can get off of here to make room for all this? Because we have 52 creatures in the deck. That's like a lot of creatures, right?
Yeah.
Like Diregraph Horde here for 5 mana, we can get rid of that. Raid Bombardment, Hissing Iguanar. Do you like Hissing Iguanar?
I've never been a fan of it just because it's single target.
It's only single target, right?
Yeah. So the other Garna player played that, and I'm like, it's good, don't get me wrong, because it's like extra value, but I just feel that wasting a card in a sense that's only going to do 1 damage to a single player when the whole purpose I want to do is just literally kill everyone at the same time.
Yeah.
It really doesn't allow me to like get to that point.
Yeah, I think with Hissing Iguanar, the weird thing is that even though it's single target, if this was everybody, it would be a lot better, of course. but
Absolutely.
you have a choice as to where it goes. So when I play a card like this, I am going to promise whoever hits me with a sweeper that all the damage will go at them.
And that's why it's been so
And that's why
tough
it's weird.
with it. Yeah,
That's why it's weird because that feels like retribution
it's very
instead
political
of
to use to your advantage.
right. And it feels, and I don't really like retribution politics, like that sort of vibe of like, you messed me up, so I'm going to mess you up. Like, you hit me last turn, so I'm going to hit you, is like failing to see the bigger picture. It's failing to see the forest for the trees. And so that's what this card feels like. And that's kind of why I'm not into it, as much, is because it's like, that's what it could kind of be read as. Because the disgusting thing is somebody sweeps your board, they're not the problem, and then you send all that damage to somebody else.
And
That
just
is
make the field better,
pure profit for the person who played the sweeper. They did damage to somebody else while killing your board. So I don't think Hissing Iguana is where we want to be.
Like even when it was when the other Garna played it, they only did like
a
they
couple of
barely
damage.
did anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about the card is that it punishes the way that people hurt you, which is sweepers. But I don't like the game theory of it all that much. Let's get our draw spells in here. We've got Corrupted Conviction. We've got Nasty End, mainly for Garna, but it is just a 2-mana draw too. We're going to have Go for the Throat. Maybe we don't... Do we need anthems in this deck at all? Okay, let's think about it this way. What if we just didn't play the combo? Because what I'm noticing here is that these are just good cards, but a lot of these are also cards that are disrupting our balance of other effects.
And that's where it's the honest truth. So once you play one of the cards, if you play
then you eat up like 5, 6 other slots, right?
Yeah, so you're taking up a couple of slots. Even so, like, what the hell is it called? I always forget. Shred Memory, for example.
Yep.
Shred Memory only really gets the combo.
Yeah, I mean, it can get you removal, but you're not using it for that. It can get you Bloodseeker. It can be Graveyard Hate. So it's like, it's kind of funny. When we put these cards in the deck, yes, it has other purposes, but is it what the deck is trying to do? And is it there only for the combo? Well, yeah, it can do other things, but it's mainly there for the combo. Yeah. And I think in this deck, I've never been a huge fan of the First Day of Class combo. I have never died to it outside of Pauper.
And that's the thing.
I rarely see it, and I've never killed anybody with it. So we have to have that brutal honesty to say, like, is this
I've played it in Pauper 60 a lot, and
that's
really
great
like
there. It's really good there. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing in that format. But let's try this out, okay? Because I think we get lost in the sauce when we start trying to do all of these things.
A lot of resources slots into that, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so that's good. And then the next tension we're going to run into is a matter of balancing the number of sack outlets with the amount of food and the amount of payoffs. That's any aristocrat deck has this problem, while also maintaining some modicum of removal. Do we have anything that we care about with Dread Return? We have Troll, Oliphant, maybe Tiamat's Fanatics. Not a ton, because we don't even have Gary in here, do we? We don't have Extort creatures in here either.
I was considering throwing 1 or 2 Extorts in there.
There's really only one that we want in black, and it's Basilicus creature. Yeah. The other one is 4 mana, and it's a 3/2. It's just a really tragic card. It's like Extort is that good that you almost play it, and then you don't, because you realize that it's a 4 mana 3/2 that dies to every sweeper that you want to play in black and red, and doesn't block well, can't attack well. Extort is almost good enough to play it. I might still be wrong, but here we are. Bloodseeker is okay. It's in there, so we're good on that.
The Unearthed I'd keep in there just because it has the cycling, but doing Death Denied didn't really Because a lot
I
of the
think
things are
that's
tokens.
yeah. I think Death Denied is fine to cut out of here. I don't
Yep.
have it in here actually. I don't even. Yeah, Unearth.
And yours, yeah.
Unearth is interesting because again, yeah, a lot of these are spells, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Unearth is really at its best not when it's getting back a 2 mana creature like a Carrier Thrall. It's best when it gets a 3 mana creature like Wake Dancer, and we only have Wake Dancer, Cathari Bomber, and that's it. So I think Unearth
Exactly.
is not making the cut. I really like Unearth and you know, what's it called? Return Triumphant, Recommission, those kinds of cards in white black extort decks because they get every extort creature back from the graveyard, and you get a lot of them. So
Well, it also comes down to the same thing with Dread Return.
yeah, like what are we getting back from this?
Yeah,
The
you're really not getting anything with the Dread.
the other thing though, the reason I was looking at this card that I put it in here was the sack 3 creatures for
That's the
free.
only real So like the only time I was able to use it, they were able to respond with like, exile in my graveyard. But like I had the troll in the bin, I had enough creatures. I was gonna sack the 3 and bring back the troll.
Yeah, I don't think it's good enough here. I
But
think
that's
your
literally so
intuition
situational.
around that is correct. Stirring Bard under draw, and let's bring in the initiative here. I think that is smart. Um, we are a good deck for the initiative. We can definitely use it. Do we want Goblin Matron? Goblin Matron does find us Beetleback Chief. It finds us Mog War Marshal. It can find us Goblin Chirurgeon.
One thing that I like was I matron for a Scourge, and then I had 2 mana from other stuff as
Scourge.
well. Like Skirk, I mean.
Oh,
Skirk
Skirk
Prospector.
Prospector. Oh yeah, yeah, yep, yep. Although we aren't going to be playing Prospector in this deck, so
Yeah.
that won't be as important. I think Ashnod's Altar is possible. That is something we want to keep in because it would help us recast Garna, right? So in a pinch, you can just sacrifice like 2 tokens, make 4 mana, and it's like your insurance to play Garna, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. All of these. Do we have all of the Grave Flicker cards? And is Dark Privilege what we want to be playing? It's making anything into a sack outlet.
So the reason it's in there, I did use it a couple of times. It does help, but it's more so it's a low free sack outlet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cheap.
It's
Yep.
a 2 mana. You can sacrifice a free creature. The extra buff to the toughness did help a little bit with blockers because there was a good chunk of 1/1s on the fields and
Yep.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like I say, if I get Garnet to a 4 power, it's basically just almost indestructible at that point, you know?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So
Tiamat.
it did have good value out of it.
Okay. We've got a bunch of cuts to make. So do we want our fodder to be primarily cheap? It
I
seems
think
like
that
it,
just
right?
getting the fodder as low as possible.
Yeah.
We're gonna be drawing a lot of cards.
So do
So I
we?
think being able to drop 2 to 3 cards per turn, or at
So
least get 3 bodies per turn,
yeah.
is gonna really allow us to like refill every single turn.
So something like Exquisite Huntmaster could go here because even though the Encore is busted in this deck, we don't have a way to really get it into the graveyard. Like, we'll play it, we can sacrifice it. I guess that's one way. You play it, sacrifice it. I mean, this makes more bodies than any card, any single
So
card
yeah. So
that exists.
I had the hell was it? The thing that makes 3 Eldrazi's in there. That costs 5.
Emrakul's
I
Hatcher.
had that at one point. Eldrazi, the Hatcher.
It's so expensive.
It's so expensive, and again, that's where I somewhat led on the Huntmaster. Again, it is making bodies, but it's
and they
like,
sacrifice themselves. I mean, it's like
you know,
the very premium of like
yeah,
fodder.
Encore and Myriad are like 2 of my favorite. Again, Myriad, you
Yeah.
make sure you sacrifice
Oh,
instead
yeah.
of, like, because it doesn't do itself.
Yeah, Myriad's
But
insane.
even still, Encore and Myriad, I really want to. I definitely have been considering pushing that as a higher end.
Here's the difference between Fanatics and Hatcher. This is a 4/3 that has haste, and it makes 3 other 4/3s, or 2 other
Yeah.
4/3s, right? Whereas
Yeah.
Hatcher is just a 3/3 that makes 0 1s. I don't think it's
Yeah.
good enough.
Well, the reason why I had the Hatcher in there,
Mhm.
because I was doing it, I was able to get the Phyresis to go off. I play the Hatcher, put on a Ghost Form or Flicker effect, a Kaya Ghost Form effect on it.
Mhm.
Sacrifice it for 1, so it enters the battlefield. I have 4 creatures. Sacrifice the 1 creature, comes back. I have another 4 creatures, so that's 8 total creatures off of
Yeah.
2 spells.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's
So
strong.
that was so for 6 mana, I can do 8 damage.
So what about
So
Armor of Shadows? Do we want to because like these Feign Death effects are not premium in the sense that they are not we're not hyper focused on ETBs. Our commander doesn't have an ETB. We can get some incidental value out of ETBs, but really this is a 1 mana protection spell, right? At instant speed. So we have Malice,
even what
Evil.
was there and who I faced, having protection wasn't as prevalent.
It wasn't as important. So let's cut
From
Armor
when I
of
played
Shadows.
it with my decks anyway.
Yeah, let's cut that one. I think we could also cut it Dark Privilege. I don't like the fact that this is a sorcery speed aura
Correct. Yeah.
in a deck that doesn't protect its commander very well. Essentially, we're saying in Rakdos we don't defend ourselves very well, so we're not going to we're not going to lean into that as much. Shred Memory can come out, and we need removal too. We still haven't added any of that. We're probably going to have to cut some of these, some number of them, or not payoffs, but sack outlets. I mean, these are kind of the premium ones. It's actually going to have to be a bit of fodder as well. We have a lot of draw. Maybe these blitz cards aren't like Plasma Jockey could probably go.
Like things I played with Blitz, they were not bad when I was playing limited and standard, but they didn't do. They're not really offering a lot of value given the of itself for what you're putting into it in a way. I feel.
Yeah. So Plasma Jockey in this deck is a 3 mana, 3/1 haste that makes a thing can't block, and then draws 2 cards because of Garna. Girder Goons is the same way. You know, when I think about this again, we don't need the Monarch, we don't need the Initiative. These cards actually draw us more cards. They get us more value. Girder Goons is 2 bodies for 4 mana. It's going to draw 2 cards. So it's for 4 mana, you get 6 power worth of creatures. You only keep 2 of it, and you draw 2. So it's a 4 mana draw 2 that leaves behind a 2/2. That might not be good enough. Plasma Jockey, though.
Jockey, I can see doing a value
because that's like
3.
Yeah, it's a divination with an attacker. Even that though, is that actually good enough? Because think about it this way: if we just make a creature that has 2 bodies, or if we cast a spell that creates 2 creatures and we attack with both of them, we sack both of them and we draw 2 cards.
Yes, like I try to keep.
So
it
we
down
don't want
to, like,
these.
any spell. Like a lot of things, the things that make 2 bodies are more of it. It's like spells can make 2 bodies at a single time.
Yeah.
Or even like the Doom Dissenter and the thing that makes the goat, whatever, and then the one that makes the zombie. Like they are more of a priority because I want things to die. I'm okay if they all die.
Yep. What do you think about Gnawing Crescendo? Is this a card we're gonna play? We probably have enough non-token creatures that this is good, right? Like we cast this, and then we play a sack outlet, and go bananas.
So, I tried to avoid looking at the cards in the new six. I didn't have access to them. That's like I think this is a very good card.
Yeah. That's been kind of my impression too.
Because if anything, you got to figure. Generally, I would have when my board started to get gummed up with the amount of creatures. I would have at least 2 non-token. So at minimum, you're gonna get a buff plus at least 2 creatures back. So drawing several cards plus, I think at that point that's an okay buff.
Yeah, yeah, and especially if it's replacing some of the bodies in play. You can do
Exactly.
this reactively to somebody else's sweeper. You can do this while you swing in. If they block, pump up your team, get some damage in. Maybe some of your stuff dies. You get 1/1s out of them, which is great. It's going to trigger Impact Tremors, Woody Roastmaster. It give you more stuff for raid bombardment. The other thing I noticed too is that a lot of the creatures that we're cutting, like those blitz cards, they don't trigger raid bombardment. We want cheap, meaningless shit that we throw at people and we say block it, and I'll draw cards,
Yeah.
and I'll sack it to make something else bigger.
Value no matter what
I'm
you do.
getting value. Yeah, you just want cheap shit. Just cheap shit. So we just want to maximize that, right? So anything that's not cheap shit can go. So like the only difference is being that Fanatics is doing this every single turn. It's just such a powerful engine. Is Huntmaster good enough? This is making, if we play it and sack it, we get a body out of it. And when we encore it, we're going to get 3 more bodies that we can sack, and then 3 more creatures. So it's a total of 8 bodies on 1. I don't think we can pass that up. That's like insane,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's nuts.
That's the high end value. Like I said, it has a lot of investment, but it's a big investment, big gains kind of card.
Yeah.
It's one of those that it's like one of those like last to cut cards for me.
Yeah. I mean, these are
Where
like
it's been
it's like it's okay to have a top end in an aggro deck if it's only a couple of cards, right? And this is our top end. It's 5 mana, right? Like, yeah, Oliphant and Troll, but like these are cards that are lands. They're lands, and then sometimes they're creatures. You top deck them in the late game, and you're like, cool. Here's my 6/5 unblockable, or Oliphant does a ton of work in this deck too, if you cast it. So these are just lands, and we will go down on lands a little bit. I don't think we need 39.
I played with other than the one game where I flooded beyond belief, I play with the 32. So I have 32 lands: the Elephant, the Troll, a Petal, and a Simian Spirit Guide.
Yeah.
So I was in theory playing 35.
And I know you had trouble drawing too many lands, but that is variance. Yeah. I cannot condone those land count numbers. You've also got rocks though. You had a couple of rocks. So like
I was
a little
very
lower.
on edge of where I was supposed to be with the lands.
I mean, Simian Spirit Guide Lotus Petal is mania, dude. That is.
I love Simian. Lotus Petal. Obviously, I don't really. It's whatever for that. I love the Simian because it has so many surprises that no one expects.
It's true.
I played it almost every single game I did at some point, and it always was like, damn it, I did not see that coming.
Right. And the other thing you can keep in mind too is that it's also a body. Right.
It's just a body.
It's just a body. But the same thing could be said about Ornithopter of Paradise, right? Because that can also attack in your deck, and it's persistent mana, and it's only 2. So it kind of does something similar. We could consider playing maybe some ramp creatures that can eventually attack. That's an option as well. But in the meantime here, we also need to get removal in the deck. So Gnawing Crescendo is going to be an Anthem. There's so many of these over here. It's too many. Because I'm gonna get rid of some of these categories. We've got these payoffs here. It's kind of a weird category. This is like an old deck that that has like some weird stuff that I no longer use. Sweepers. Whale of the Nim is another card that I'd like to explore too. Whale of the Nim is a sweeper that hits the table for 1 every creature and every player, and you can regenerate each creature, or you can do both, which is really strong. So I like that. This is a way that we could actually, if you imagine, like if our opponents go to sweep our board, and we don't want them to, we can just regenerate everything. So, okay, are there any sack outlets here that suck? Like Blood Flow Connoisseur is like has to sack 2 creatures to become on rate.
Yeah.
I don't think this is good. It's free. It's a free sack outlet, but
There's there's the Altar Blood Throne Vamp, Carrion. There's Devouring Swarm. It's the same thing, but it has flying. It's the same as the Blood Flow.
yep.
1 black flying sacrifice, put a counter on it.
Oh, here's Gixian Infiltrator. This is one we probably want whenever you sack a creature, another permanent actually. You put a +1/+1 counter, but it's a 2/1 for 2, so it's coming in immediately on rate. I was also looking at Voracious Vermin. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it and make a rat token. This is actually both, right? This is
Oh, yeah,
both
you
the
want that
food
then.
and the payoff. That's a rare thing when we get both categories. Did we like the Aether Chaser and the Aether Poisoner? One has Death Touch and one has First Strike, and they both make a body.
So I do like them, but again, it's like
They have to attack,
you have to attack.
but I mean that's
Make
what
it-
we're doing anyways, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think they're good. Do we play those over something like Thatcher Revolt? I guess Thatcher Revolt is technically 3 mana, draw 3, right?
Yeah. So listen, I like because with the roll, they're automatically going in,
And they're gonna die.
and whether they attack, they deal the damage or not, you're still sacrificing it one way or another.
Yeah. They don't need a sack outlet in play. They just need Garna.
You know.
Yep, I like it. So is there anything worse in here that we don't like? Like Doomed Dissenter has to die to make a zombie, whereas these ones only have to attack. Maybe, and the other thing are these better than the ones that just make 1/1s? Because you're getting a 1/1 Death Touch and you're getting a 1/1. They just can't swing all at the same time. You have to play it,
Yeah.
swing with it, create the token, and then it swings. And I think that's why we won't play these, is because it's 3 turns, right? 3
To get any
turns.
value off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Regain gut itself. You know.
Death Greeter does seem good. I don't.
I just like Death Grid because it
It's
gives you
so
that
much
extra
life.
pillow.
It's so much life. I think that's really important. Yeah. So we're at the stage where we are going to have to cut good cards. Yeah, I mean we're definitely there because we still need to make room for removal. So how much fodder do we actually need?
Well, do you want to keep the 3? Because you still have the 3 anthems in there too.
Yeah, maybe these aren't important. Maybe we're just saying that if they sweep our board, that everybody takes a bunch of damage, and that's good enough.
Yeah. So I feel if we take out the Dissenter, take out the 3,
Even the gnawing crescendo. I guess like how many of these are instants and how many of these are creatures? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Like I wouldn't mind the gnawing, but the other 2 I'd say
7, 8. 8 of the, so a third of these are token spells, but the other ones are creatures. So this actually, but how many of these create tokens? So like if a carrier thrall is about to die and you go gnawing crescendo, it's actually going to make 2 bodies. That could be really game ending. If you have impact tremors and somebody goes to sweep you and you have like 6 creatures in play and like 5 of them are creatures,
you're immediately just getting even double value on top of it. Yeah.
yeah. That seems good. Reckless Bushwhackers just seems so good in the deck. But like I get it. It's also not like core if we're doing mid-range, right? And we don't need to play a lot of draw spells because Garna is our draw engine. So this is a pinging deck. This is a deck that is trying to ping people to death. And then Ashnod's Altar is literally for recasting Garna.
Yep.
This is kind of like a protection spell. Bone Picker seems potentially slow. If we don't have one of these and we don't have Garna in play, if we don't have Garna in play, our sack outlets aren't sacking creatures because we want to sack them with Garna. So Bone Picker, while it's an amazing card,
I've always cut that one of the first ones I cut just because having be
yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta figure only about a sixth of the deck is gonna allow you to initiate that to go through on its own without having to worry about additional items.
Yep.
So that will allow yourself to like, because in a sense, like only maybe even a fifth of the time on the low end are you gonna get yourself 3/2 Death Touch for one.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Falconwrath Noble comes to mind here as another life gain pinger.
I feel that would be.
Oh, there's Wart Eye Witch. Holy shit. Okay, yeah. So here's a question. Are these cards win more? Because we're already drawing cards off Garna. Do we also need to scry? Or is that just excessive? Because we have 3 cards allocated to this, right? We have...
So I've used the scry effects before.
Vivisector,
but,
Imp.
Yeah.
And Wart Eye. I would keep Imp because it flies. Unfortunately, Imp is one at a time, but that's fine because you just sack them one at a time. Sack it, scry, draw. Sack, scry, draw. Sack, scry, draw, right? Like,
yeah.
Vivisector and Wart Eye Witch work if somebody else sweeps your board because they're going to get a whole bunch of scries, but it's going to be a scry 1, scry 1, scry 1, scry 1. So once you hit what you've got, once you hit what you want, you don't scry anymore, right? So I think we can cut Witch and we can cut Vivisector.
I would leave just the Imp.
Yeah, I think the Imp is the way to go because it can attack over and over and over again in the air. Ecstatic Awakener is a little bit expensive. I don't like this card very much right now in this deck. It can only sack once.
So I've been seeing that in a lot of people's decks, and I just don't like it.
I think it's a pet card for me. I don't have a lot of these. You won't hear me say this on stream very often. That one is a pet card of mine.
It's a cool card because it's becoming a 4/4 beater.
I mean, there's that. You know, it's but like, look, the flavor text on this card absolutely slays. Bones cracked, flesh split apart, and the screams of euphoric agony gave way to unholy laughter. Oh, it's so metal. It's so sick. I want to be this guy at like some metal show, you know? Just completely jacked, covered in some like painted blood, some big ass horns. I don't know. It just gets me going. I like this card. But I think in this list, it's not the right home for it. You know, it's a lot of mana for a sack outlet that's only one. And yes, it's drawing you a card, and maybe even drawing you 2 because of Garna. But it's really Garna that's drawing you the card, right?
Yeah.
So now we're at 100 cards, but we only still have 2 kill spells. So, and if we're gonna play some kill spells, I think we need like 10. We need like even Golem, okay? Very aggressive. It has 10 kill spells. And because we draw a lot of cards, we're more likely to hit those draw spells.
Correct.
Also, is there any reason for us to play Pestilence in this deck?
I would say no at this point.
Okay. Because Pestilence is a sack outlet.
And that's the reason why I'm still back and not like on it now is 1, it costs 4 mana to start off, which at that point I want to use that slot for other stuff.
Yeah.
You can only use black mana sources to activate it.
Yep.
And more often than not, like 1, it makes me really have to think, how am I tapping my mana right now before I play this? Because I played it twice, and like, it really made me go, okay, like if I do this, and I do like obviously like it's pretty obvious, like what you gotta tap, but like it makes you rethink your next turns as well. Because
I mean,
it only
is this a good scrub moment? Is this like
bingo?
Okay, but I mean, the bigger question is like, are we willing to sacrifice our board if it's gonna kill, if it's gonna like draw us a bunch of cards, right? Because at end of combat, we can swing in with everything, do our damage. End of combat, we pop pestilence and we kill our stuff, and it's kind of like a sack outlet, right? Um, that
I've also seen like that pestilence when it played in one of the games because Garnet is at 3 and most of the
yeah,
creatures that
yeah,
are like doing work are 2 power at most.
or
So
two
I
toughness.
used it as an advantage to myself. Like, hey, if you keep I'll keep Garnet out and not go after you if you don't kill Garnet and just keep using it for 2.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I
And
mean,
it keeps things in check.
I would want to test it in Garna to see if it worked, because it's basically it's a win condition that works with our pinging very well. Um, Now that being said, we are not the kind of black deck that gains a lot of life.
Correct.
This is we have Reckoner's Bargain, we have Falconwrath Noble, we have Death Greeter, and Lampad, and Mold Folk, and like outside of that, oh, and Nadir's Nightblade, and Basilicus Creature. So we've got some, but it's unlike nowhere near the other black decks I'm playing that just gain a lot of
Yeah.
life, right?
It's a slight cushion, but don't expect it to be a whole bit.
No, it's not going to be like pushing you above 30 very often, which
Yeah.
means that Pestilence becomes a bit more high variance, where you might draw it and not be able to use it. And that's not a common scenario you find in most black decks. You generally have enough life to use it. So we have 35 lands, 37 with Troll and Oliphant, so really it's a 37 land thing. We have 100 cards in the deck, so we are full. We could... No, see, Rotten Reunion's too damn good in this deck. It's insane. It's like... Graveyard Hate and a Divination. And Attackers. What else could we play? K-Dead is kind of an interesting card here. Like, K-Dead is only sacking one thing, and then it's just a good attacker. So it's not really playing to our game plan, because it's only going to ping people. You can only ever ping people with this. Right? You can't draw cards with K-Dead.
No.
So I love K-Dead. This is the other pet card, but it's got to go. I hate it. I hate that we're cutting these good cards, but we must be disciplined. Hobble Fiend is probably fine. How many goblins do we have? Like a bunch of token goblins, right? So Goblin Kyrugian. Yeah, we want this. Although it won't always be a consistent sack outlet, and it doesn't attack very well at all. It's a 0-2. So sacrifice. What are some other creatures that allow you to sacrifice repeatedly for mana?
Or Thermopod is the other one.
And actually, here's the other question: do we play the ones that sacrifice to give temporary bonuses because they are free?
Only if the mana value is low enough, in a sense. If you keep the curve low enough.
Because I don't really like playing the ones that give you a temporary thing, right? Like, there's a part of me that would prefer... Oh, we want this. Blood Aspirant. This is the new one that's whenever you sack a permanent, you gain a +1/+1 counter. This is great. It's another payoff. So, like, yeah, Blood Baron, Blood Throne Vampire, Blood Flow Connoisseur. I mean, I guess that these cards are very strong in the context of the deck, because it's not just a temporary bonus. It's drawing cards, right? Like, that's how these cards translate.
Yeah.
So we could bring these in instead of having the ones that take mana. Because look, if you have to if you have to pay mana to sack all your creatures, you don't have mana to rebuild your board, do you?
No, it
Oh,
kills you on the spot.
okay. So we kind of need these actually.
The free like being able, like I said, that the biggest hit for me was with the Lampid. I would have easily been able to win it if I already had like one extra mana because I had to dump 4 mana into the Lampid to
Yeah.
have it activate.
What about Devouring Swarm? This is actually pretty cool because it's a 2 power,
I
3 mana
was looking at that one.
creature. This is
And it
like,
flies.
yeah, this is like subtly exactly where we want to be because it's a sack outlet that's not going to die in combat, right? I think that's quite good. Um, this is another one. This is actually kind of similar, except that it doesn't get power unless you sack humans. Um, we'll have to kind of watch this one. It's pretty bad though. Like 3 mana, 2/1 with a sack outlet that just gives it the evasion that it should already have is not hot. Uh, oh yeah, Nantuko Husk. Yep, and Phyrexian Ghoul. God, why do they keep making these really, really bad versions of this? I get
I
that
don't
this
know.
is powerful, but like I really think that Wizards is way too conservative about this thing. Like, look at Mold Folk. This card is tragic. Yeah, it's omnivorous, and yeah, it's colorless mana to sacrifice, and yeah, it's instant speed and has lifelink, but like,
But still.
give us like more carrion feeders. Like, Aristocrats isn't good. It's not like a strategy that tends
In
to
any
be
format too,
generically
really.
good. Yeah, yeah, you have some of them that are good, but generally they involve artifacts, right? Aristocrats like has this like A plus B plus C problem of like you need your payoff, your food, and your sacrificer all at the same time. So it should reward you handsomely when you get all
But
three of them. And instead, we
it's
get
like
cards like Novice Dissector, which is not on curve, not on rate, doesn't have any keywords, and costs mana to sacrifice at instant speed, at sorcery speed. This is so
it's
bad.
the sorcerer. Yeah,
Oh, it's
I
so
know.
terrible. Uh, okay. Then we got some other ones here. We got Sepulture Ghoul, which is a free sack another creature, but you can only do it once. We have
The one
Vampire
thing I don't
Aristocrat.
like.
We want that one. Okay, Voracious Null is an interesting card only because the first creature it sacrifices, or sorry, when it sacrifices, it gets 2 counters. That is interesting. This gets very big very quickly, but you can only do it as a sorcery, and you can
So the
activate
reason
it,
why I don't like the sorcery is
and
because
it's 2 mana. Ugh.
it's 2 mana is like way too high to be started off, but then having it at sorcery speed, I want to be able to do that,
Look
like
at that
sacrifice
art.
things and remove things at. I know that's art's freaking badass.
Yeah, we don't want this card. I'm like, um, relishing how metal this is.
Yeah,
That's gnarly. Um, yeah, we need instant speed. That's the TLDR there. Okay, but we've added a bunch of good ones. So let's go back and make the changes to get rid of the ones that cost lots of mana. Now, Body Dropper gets a pass because it's also a Mortician Beetle. These are going to be sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Even a Blood Aspirant is also kind of a sack outlet, but it's not the kind that we want. It's only one, and it has to tap itself. So Mold Folk can come out, I think. Boggart and Dragonheart is a free sack outlet, and we can do it anytime we want, and it gets evasion. So I actually like this one quite a lot. Dimir Houseguard is really good too. We like Lampad though, right? Because this is a pinger.
it's a pinger, and the extra life does help out. It
Yeah,
really
it's
does.
very good. Hobble
Even if
Fiend,
it's one generic, it still helps.
and then Dark Dweller Oracle draws cards. So this is really strong, right? Like that doubles up on our Garna triggers.
Yeah.
And then Body Dropper because it's also a Mortician Beetle. I don't even want to consider this a sacrificer. I don't think we're
So
ever.
I don't see the dropper as a sacrifice. I just see it as
Yeah, okay. Let's not be silly then. It's not a sacrificer, it's just a payoff.
yeah.
Bloodthrone Vampire Aspirant is not a sacrifice outlet. This is a payoff. Remove
Dark
tag.
Dweller, I just feel like I say, yeah, it's just one of those where like you're already drawing a lot to begin with, you know,
Yeah.
and it's only until end of turn.
So maybe this is like excessive. Like if you
Yeah,
draw, I mean, it turns like a draw 3 into a draw 6.
Yeah, so it's gonna get value off of it 100%, but then you gotta figure what if, how often more than not are we gonna already spent my mana and I just lost 3 cards, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and we might not have them because we have to pay mana to do it. That's the problem.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Yes, you're losing 3 by default.
let's cut that
And I
one.
want to start activating that around like turn 4 or 5, depending on where things are at. So
Do we really need
I'm not
Noble?
gonna have a lot to drop. Noble,
It
I
seems
just feel is a tough
expensive.
one. It
And it's only
seems
one
so
player.
expensive.
Yeah, I don't think Noble pays itself off. I don't think we can afford it. We just added a bunch of great sacrificers, but that we can't afford. And Falconwrath Torturer is also just like not even going to stay in considering. Goblin Matron can go into considering. Okay, so now we have some better numbers here. We have 103 cards. We're still like, you see the tension here? Like how
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to put removal in Aristocrats decks because you need a good number of sacrificers, you need a good number of food, and generally speaking, this is a 2-to-1 ratio. You want like twice as much food as you want for here, and this is why like Gut Throne is so insane because
Yeah,
let's go take a look at that one really quick. Gut
See, that's the
Throne,
biggest problem that I've experienced is
Like, why
am I
not-
just building a different version of Gut Throne?
like a worse version probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
In a
like
way, yeah.
look at Gut. I mean, Gut has 34 pieces of food, and look at how cheap they are.
Yeah, they're nothing.
Dirt cheap. They come on lands because it's artifacts. It's artifacts. Oh.
Yeah.
So, this list is interesting because look at all the removal I get to play. Right?
Yeah, your door's wide open now for that.
Right, because this commander is the pinger, it's the threats, it's the sack outlet, and it's omnivorous.
Yeah.
Oh, when I say it that way, I feel a
It's a
little
tough
bit
one.
sad for Garna
It's tough. I know.
because I suddenly, because I can actually play ramp in this deck. Like, I have 10 pieces of ramp. I have 34 lands, 15 pieces of removal, 7 pieces of protection.
It is a very tough one to see, like, having more of, like, options in a sense. Like, what direction do you bring Garnet in, and at what point does it make more sense just to stop and go straight to a Gut Agent deck?
Yeah. So let's think about the commanders and what they do. Garna is a pinger, just like Agent of the Iron Throne. It is also a draw engine, and it's a pretty massive draw engine. You can definitely draw, like, I mean, I've had games where I drew like 20 cards off of Garna.
Yeah, every single game I play, I was a third of the way in. Every single one of them, I had no worry with it.
It's cracked. And
the
you
reason why
don't
I-
draw cards like that in Gut. But
So that's what it is. So, like, the way I see Gut versus Garna is if I want to, quote, win, I need to have both Gut and Age at the same time. So it's a 2 versus 1. And then additionally, I favor drawing cards to find things more than having to cast that second spell and then doing something. You know?
well, here's another thought. Do we actually want payoffs in this deck?
The payoff, maybe just
Maybe
top in with,
this
like,
is the
2 or
payoff.
3. Yeah.
So because this might be win more. Garna is a good card. Like we have to just crack the code on it a little bit because it's easy in Aristocrats to get lost in the sauce and pulled in a ton of different directions until you're suddenly not clear on exactly what it is you're doing, or you are sacrificing slots of things that you need to be playing to play things that are win more. A card like Mortician Beetle is win more in this deck because Garna is what's doing all the damage and drawing all the cards. Frankly, I'm even looking at these cards. Like, why are we playing these if Garna is going to draw all of our cards? Right? Like, I was looking with this with Corpse Augur. Corpse Augur doesn't play draw spells in it because Corpse Augur draws like 7 cards at a time.
Yeah.
That does create a vulnerability in your deck, but Corpse Augur is also a big mana deck that has 14 mana rocks in it, and we're just going to cast Corpse Augur as many times as we need.
As many times as possible.
Yeah, it's fine, right? This deck doesn't have that kind of redundancy. We are 37 lands, no ramp. So I'm kind of working through in my head, like, what is it about Garna that is more appealing than some other Rakdos or black option that draws you cards, or some Rakdos option that applies a lot of pressure like Garna wants to do? Because these cards are awful without Garna, right? They're really, really bad.
Yeah.
Like, this whole quarter of our deck, except for Tiamat's Fanatics, is just absolutely shit without Garna. Huh. I wonder if I'm talking myself out of this right now.
It makes you wonder.
It does. It does make you wonder.
But that's what makes you like it more personally.
Yeah.
feeling that like there's a quote better option makes me feel as though like as the deck builder and the one playing it, if I'm able to do it, then I've done myself a better job at being the deck builder itself. Like, if I could take something, like, say the other players out there that were playing the frog thing, if you build that, which you don't expect, but then you actually do really, really well, then you're a better, that you feel internally, you're a better deck builder.
Yeah, like, or a better player.
100%, and a better player. Like,
yeah. I mean, there is that. I think also, though, that I wouldn't want to do that at the expense of increasing my odds of winning. Because ultimately, like, the winning isn't the most important thing to me.
Correct. Because honestly, like, within every single game I played, other than the first one, I'll say we went to turns and it was a draw. So I don't even win in a sense, like, everything was well balanced for that game. It just worked out.
Yeah.
But each other game that I played, it was literally down to like the legit wire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So game 2, they top deck the Freed effect. I can't get around it. It just happens to be that way. But I had everything in control the entire time, no problem at all.
Yeah.
Game 3, I had the 2 Ellie decks. I had every single thing in control other than them drawing into the Gary and having literally that one extra pip that did it for them.
Yep.
And then game 4, where they had one of like the 2 cards that had them the ability to cast something twice with the Kiln Fiend. Like every single game that I played was like super super close to the wire, where I potentially if there was one thing that changed, I could have won 3 games.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it might be that Garna is like a close second to Gut Throne. Because it does do something different. It draws cards. It like, if you compare the 2 effects, essentially what you're getting out of Gut Agent of the Iron Throne is you are getting the pinging. With Gut Agent of the Iron Throne, you're getting a cheaper commander that is omnivorous for artifacts, which makes its food way, way better because you get, Blood Fountain, you get the artifact lands, you get the beat stick and the sort of, all the ones that make treasures over and over. You get all these cheap things like Sticky Fingers, Ghast. And so what Gut is translating to is pressure with bodies. Garna is the only difference is that Garna draws cards. So Garna draws cards, Gut kills people. They both kill people through the pingers.
Correct, yeah.
So I guess that's the question is like, what is the pick between the 2? And I think the thing that puts me over the edge is that this is a better pinger deck because it's artifacts, which means we get Ingenious Artillerist, we get Reckless Fireweaver,
The little edge out, yeah.
You edge it out a little bit, and you also, the bats and the Neater's Nightblade get way better when you get artifact tokens as well, because you've got stuff like the Nimblewright schematic, you've got the prize statue, you get everything from the Bloody Betrayal, the tentative, anything that makes a token, right, is going to be a little bit better, and your mana rocks ping off of those cards too. So that would be my preference when I look at these two, but you know, we like can't ignore the fact that Garna kind of has both of those on it. It's just and it's funny too, because Garna is 4 mana, but to get both of the things out of Gut, you have to cast both of them, which is 6 mana.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting though, because I'm just like, as I'm looking at this list, there's nothing more that I want to cut, and I have 3 slots left to add 3 removal spells, which would leave us at 6 kill spells, one of which is not really a kill spell. So 5 kill spells compared to...
Maybe that's the thing, though, where with Garnet itself, we don't want to, even though, like, removal is king, don't get me in a sense, but, like,
well, yeah,
maybe that's the direction we don't want to have it go. And maybe we just want to go back down to that just sheer aggro sense, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
and
that
maybe
could be.
Garnet doesn't have a mid-range option, and maybe Garnet only is an aggro build.
But how weird is that, though? Because Garna, like, it's weird that we would play a commander over another commander because it draws cards, but then play it aggressive.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in a sense, that's like, it's like a way to refill, right? And to keep the pressure up. But to keep the pressure up, to refill, you have to sack your board, which is your pressure. I feel like it's kind of fighting itself. This is weird. I've been really bullish on Garna, and now that I'm like talking about it and kind of like vocalizing it, I'm not actually seeing how I can fit in the prerequisite amount of interaction that I want to play.
Yeah.
To make it work, right? Like if we were to go and cut, maybe we go down to 12 sacrifice outlets. We cut 3 of these, and we cut some food down to like 18. Then we could get up to 10. But like these numbers are really important. These like, you can see 21 pieces of food in this deck and 15 sack outlets. We have to play all of these cards just to make all of these cards and this card work. Whereas in Gut, we don't have to play sack outlets. We just play food. Just food.
Go.
And just go. And so it's interesting. I had the same conversation with somebody when I was building Corpse Augur, because the original build of Corpse Augur had traditional draw spells in it. It had Sign in Blood, it had Siphon Mind, it had all of these like generic draw spells. And then when I was playing the deck, I was like, had these cards in hand, and I just drawn 9 cards off of Corpse Augur. And I was like, why are these in the deck? Why am I even playing them? Like, maybe I'll only play the ones that also sack my commander because it's a dies trigger, right? And what that does to the deck is it opens up all these slots to play other stuff. Kill spells, edicts, value, initiative, ramp, right? So like Gut being the sack outlet and the threats and the pinger means that all we need to do is play food. We feed Gut and we go.
So it might also just be that there's that back thought of like, can Rakdos aristocrats, quote unquote, even really do it?
I mean, I think it can.
It's on the edge. Don't get me wrong.
I think that Gut Agent of the Iron Throne solves the Gut problem that you see with Inspiring Leader. Because Inspiring Leader makes 6/3s and they're big. But 6/3s and the big 6/3s doesn't matter that they're big if all they're doing is running into 2 1/1s.
Yeah, I've never liked Gut Leader.
I genuinely
I see no value in it.
Yeah, there was the time and place when it did really well was before TPI and before Abdel. And it was like it came out in the same set as Abdel, but people weren't really playing Abdel. There was like Morgana was playing Abdel, but was basically getting just like beaten down endlessly.
Yeah, it was way too fresh in a sense, you know.
Yeah, it was super fresh, and people hadn't really fully explored it yet. And so Gut was like winning games because it was like very aggressive, and their people didn't have a lot of creatures in play. But now it's like with Abdel and with TPI and clogged boards, it's like Ellis being around. I mean, boy, if you can you imagine being a Gut leader player at that last tournament with 5 Ellis players and
Yeah,
like 3 Abdel players and like two
yeah, literally.
TPIs? No, thank you. Like I'll pass.
Because Aaron
Like,
Aaron played it. Let me see what he ended up at. Because Aaron played, he ended up 19th with a 1.
so we
Is
got
that the right
one
Aaron?
point, so we got a draw.
Yeah, let me see how
Yeah,
he did.
I wouldn't expect gut leader to do well in the
Yeah, so
future. I would
lost,
say with
he had a bye.
yeah
Same thing. Aaron had a
yeah
bye.
yeah I don't and this is one tournament, but like and it still has like a good win rate overall, but I would expect it to continue to come down over time because the difference here is that Agent of the Iron Throne and Gut punishes your opponents for their vector of attack that messes you up most, which is that they sweep your board and you say, okay, everybody takes 7. And you're still getting work done. Even in death, your enemies are dying. You know, even in the death of your creatures, they're still doing damage.
Yeah.
Right? So I like how this hedges against that, and I just don't care that they're 6/3s. Because the 3 toughness doesn't matter if your Gut dies. If somebody
Yeah,
sweeps your
it's
board,
redundant. Yeah.
yeah, it's like somebody like the 2 damage sweepers still kill the 3/2s in Inspiring Leader because it kills Gut and then everything dies because of the state-based effects. So, yeah. Well, this has been a really interesting exploration.
Yeah.
I like exploring this kind of stuff because the commanders, when you dive into them, they tell us a lot about what the deck wants to do. And what I'm learning here is that Gut does a lot. For one thing,
Yeah.
Gut does a lot. It's a sack
There's a lot of
outlet.
different directions that it can go into, and like
Yeah.
where it ends up. That's why I keep testing it all these different ways because like I want to see it do it.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
there's another another Rakdos Aristocrats deck that you could look into as well. It's kind of a proactive mid range, and I need to actually add this here. This is a proactive mid range, and that is Amber, Gristle Omal, plus Agent of Shadow Thieves. I think that's the one. Unlisted, in progress.
Yeah, that's her. It's the agent, I believe.
Is it this? This is the one that gives you indestructible. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. No, this is a sweet this is a sweet commander pairing that I really want to explore more, because the problem that Amber has is that you cannot swing without Amber dying, and Agent of Shadow Thieves comes down beforehand and says you're not going to die in combat anymore, which is really good. And if you Grave Flicker Amber while you're going to attacks because they're killing it, she's got haste.
Yeah.
So she's still going to attack, right? So it's kind of like Shadowfax, right? You can flicker Shadowfax before you go to combat. Or if somebody goes to kill it, you say go to combat and they go kill it, and you go flicker it. I can still attack with Shadowfax because it has haste. So that means that the Grave Flickers work exceptionally well here. And then this deck is also going to want to go really wide because it wants to attack lots of people. And then the stuff going into the graveyard is all going to feed like some crazy synergies. There's so many cards in black and red that like want to be in the graveyard that this is basically like Ancestral Recall every turn after turn 4. That's the idea.
Maybe that's the direction that we're even going. That maybe that's where Garnet is trying to be.
Maybe that's right. That's what I'm thinking, right? Like maybe this is where. I mean, fuck it.
My wife's name is Amber, so it would make sense.
Oh, that would be fucking awesome. Let's go for it. Let's do it.
I've been trying to find a way to build Amber just for the fuck of it, just because my wife's name is Amber.
Oh, we don't want to play on Dying Evil because the Agent of Shadow Thieves. Oh, and the sick thing is we get the trigger too.
Yeah.
What? So Amber Gristle Omald wants to play all of the Grave Flicker effects because when they try to kill your commander, you Grave Flicker it, It comes back with a counter. Oh, it'll be tapped, though. It'll be tapped. So you won't get to attack.
Oh, yeah, because it's already down, yeah.
And Undying Evil is one of the only ones that doesn't do that,
yeah.
but it puts counters. The Agent of Shadow Thieves puts counters on it, which make the Undying Evil not work. So that does limit our options a little bit. But I also, here's the other thing. Amber attacking is not like something that people like. If I'm attacking the combo player, who's stopping me? The combo player? I don't think so.
No, at that point,
I think like
cool.
people are fine with that, right? Yeah, sure. Like attack them. Go ahead. Like aggro decks get a lot of leeway to develop their game when they're attacking the right people. And that's something you need to rely on to a degree. So would this be so you could basically do like O Encore or O Flashback or O Retrace or O Escape or O Unearth or O what's another one? Is there more than that? I feel like I'm missing something here.
You got Unearth.
There's probably some wacko thing that I'm forgetting here.
Yeah.
Let's try that and see. Yeah, like Briarblade Adept is insane here. Could do something like Crawl from the Cellar. Dread Return is busted in this deck. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh. You like go to attacks, pitch your Dread Return, attack 3 players, and then Dread Return your Troll of Khazad-dûm into play for free. Oh. You get your Graveyard Hate with Coffin Purge.
Oh, we need to start thinking about this now.
Oh, this is savage. You probably want cards like Dreadscape Zombie because they have haste and they allows you to attack more than one player. Exquisite Huntmaster becomes really good because you just put it into the graveyard. You don't need to cast it. You just put it into the graveyard, right where it wants to be. First Fear Garganta, an absolute house in this deck. You probably don't even play Faithless Looting. You could. Actually, Faithless Looting's best mode is on the second half because it doesn't put you down a card. You could even play Flaring Pain to stop the fogs. Cathari Bomber is like really sick out of the Unearth. Impulsive Pilferer going straight to the graveyard, right where you want it.
Caring, yeah.
Slave Driver. Moan of the Unhallowed is a little bit too much, but and I don't think that's good enough. The card I was looking for is also Scrapwork Rager.
Oh, yep, yep.
You could do Reckless Charge. That's pretty cool. Rot Reunion we definitely want. If we're drawing a ton of cards, we could play something like Rotting Rats. Satyr's Cunning is like an engine to allow us to make bodies that can swing at people to get the trigger over and over again. Scourge Devil's really good. Scrapwork Mutt, Scrapwork Rager. Like, look at all these cards.
There's
many. Yeah, Underworld Ragehound, Underworld Charger. These are cracked. They're so good. That's a lot.
All right. So now we got to go think that.
That's 22 cards that cast from the grave. So a quarter of our deck will cast itself from the graveyard, meaning 1/4 of our cards are pitched into the graveyard for profit. And that's just like
for value.
Just for the value. Yeah. Yeah. We probably want to play like the card advantage thing is interesting, right? Because card advantage is only so good as you can use the spells during your turn. That's one of the problems with Amber. Because you're going to cycle through all your cards every turn, right? So we definitely want Gurmag Angler. So we want to use our graveyard, so delve spells. We could play Magmatic Sinkhole. Could play Tasker's Cruelty. Actually, I like Sultai Scavenger in this deck. A 1-mana 3/3 flying. It's just a Delver of Secrets. Shambling Attendants. This can attack every single turn and probably not die because it's a 3/5 Delve Death Touch. I think I like the idea of the initiative in this deck too, because we're going to go pretty wide.
I think it'd be fine with that, yeah.
I don't think we want Monarch because we're going to be swinging every turn. I like giving away the initiative.
Initiative be fine. That'd be way better than
yeah.
this one.
And then what else do we want? Like what are the funny thing is we can't even really hold up protection, can we?
Weirdly enough, I would just say let it.
So the way we do it,
maybe barely don't even bother with the protection. Just go.
Yeah, because what you have to do is these triggers happen at the same time, so you order it Shadow Thieves first, so that you get protection, and then you discard the hand. Otherwise, if you discard your hand first and then give it protection, then people can let you discard your hand, draw the new cards, and then get the protection, but then they can kill it before it gets the protection.
Yeah, you're just doing nothing at that point.
Yeah. We could put in, Shadow Alley Denizen is good in this deck. That's the 1-mana 1/1 that gives Shadow to, or Intimidate to a creature every time a black creature enters the battlefield. Very good card. Maybe we play like Dothy Horror and Dothy Slayer, because these are unblockable cards that can attack every turn. We play Changeling Outcast. We play Tormented Soul. Okay, now I think I see where this is going. So, Shadow. We probably... Oh my god. Cutthroat Ildal. Does that work? No, because it's not Hellbent when we draw the cards. So...
No, it has to be... It's the after...
Oh, we would play Dothy Marauder, though. I like that. Trespasser Ilvek needs to discard a card to get Shadow. Which, if we're discarding our hand, that's fine, right? Like, we're going to discard it anyways.
Yeah, post, it's got to be fine, yeah.
Yeah, so you, like, pre-combat, discard a card that we're going to get rid of that we're not going to use. Get Shadow.
And then just smash.
Yeah, okay. That's like, this is like probably one of the only homes I can imagine for that card. And then Fear. So here, we do Fear or Intimidate or are those the main ones? I think those are the main ones, Fear and Intimidate. And we've got a lot of options here. We have a Blind Zealot is pretty cool. Just a 3-mana 2/2, like basically unblockable. Although artifact creatures, TPI.
Yeah.
TPI. Yeah, TPI is TPI. I like the suspend cards because we can suspend them and then discard our hand, and they're gonna get cast eventually.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about them just dipping out.
Yeah, so like any card that exiles itself has that ability too. Dirge of the Dead, all creatures gain fear. Cycle it to give one creature fear. Dimir Houseguard has fear as also a sack outlet, if that's useful. Oh, this is sad. Cyclops Tyrant can't block creatures with power 2 or less with Intimidate. I thought it was can't be blocked, and I was like, oh,
that's what I thought too.
That gets through TPI. Draw Golem, we definitely want. One mana Intimidate's pretty good. We could actually put that on our commander. That's really good. Highborn Ghoul has Intimidate. Um, Nezumi Cutthroat can't block, but it has Fear. Predator's Gambit has Intimidate as long as its controller controls no creatures. That's not going to happen. Prickly Bogart. Yep, there it is. Severed Legion. We really want stuff that's on like on rate. Oh, this one here. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, it gains Intimidate. That's probably... We're going to make our land drops when we're drawing 3 cards a turn.
At least 2/3 the time, you know?
Yeah. Whenever this untaps, target creature gains Intimidate. That's not good enough. Okay. So that's that. And then we can also do flying. That's the other one. So we'll do mana value is less than or equal to 3 type creature O flying. We could have also done O tag evasion. Would have been another way to do this. Battlefly Swarm. Blightkeeper is one that you can play too. It's 1/1 flying, and it has this like ability that you can sometimes use. Cadaver Imp seems great. Cool, we got some action in chat here. Lucifer, are there any useful skulkers? Oh, Skulk is a great idea. Yep, there are a couple of good skulkers. There's one that has Death Touch, and I can't remember its name right now, but we'll look at that. Thank you. Victoria, wow, just got home from work, and I'm really surprised to see. Yeah, we went through all the decks from the tournament that were interesting. We went through Garna. We rebuilt Garna as a mid-range deck, and then we came around to Garna having a lot of tension with the cards that it asks you to play and the density that it asks you to play them in, when in comparison to Gut, Agent of the Iron Throne. I think that the conclusion we came to is that the Gut deck has a little more flexibility to play a lot more interaction because it's your threats and it's omnivorous and it's your sack outlet and you have the pinger. Whereas Garna has to fill the deck with like sack outlets that occupy 15 slots. And you don't have to do that in Gut. So when you have a lot of things in an aristocrat deck that are covered in one zone, your payoff, your sack outlet, and all you have to do is put food in the deck, then, you know, Gut ended up getting to play like 34 pieces of food and 15 pieces of removal and a good bunch of good draw spells. Whereas Garna, you have to fill the deck with food and sack outlets. So for me and the conclusions I landed on, I think the Gut leader is where I want to be. And now what we're doing is we're actually looking at, well, what's another Rakdos commander that's very aggressive, that draws a lot of cards? And now we're looking at Amber Griswold Maul paired with Agent of Shadow Thieves so that we can get Ancestral Recall every turn. That's the idea. I will post the links for the decks. Here's Garna. So we just put some good removals in. Like, let's just fill this out with like Terminate, Go for the Throat. We already have like Lightning Bolt. And then actually we probably play Heartfire and Improvised Club, because these cards are 4 damage, so they do kill so they kill it's an S, isn't it? They kill Abdel, but they also go face. So we play these over. So basically we only want cards that can also go face. So maybe we do like collateral damage as well. And maybe we play that. Yeah, we'll just leave it like this. Considering, and then we probably don't have life to be casting Snuff Out.
No.
Yeah, so let's cut that one. Okay. So here's the deck. This is what we landed on for Garna. I don't know how I feel about the end result on this one here. It's just too light on removal for me. but maybe it's proactive enough. Yeah. There's that one, and then the gut leader or the gut throne deck that I have called Game of Thrones. It only has 194 views. That's so anemic compared to the other stuff that I've got. Interesting. People are very people like their leader decks.
Yeah, they do.
I
They really do.
don't, but that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything.
Yeah, 100% there.
um, let's see. And then I'll link the one that we're doing now, which is the Amber. So cards that bring back creatures are good if we can redeploy the creatures, right? Oh, this is an interesting one. Deep Cavern Imp. 3/2 Flying Haste 2/2 with Echo, discard a card. But discarding a card doesn't matter if we're going to discard our hand, right? Eh. Oh, Madness. Oh,
Oh yeah, because you're discarding it. Yeah.
oh, yeah. Here we go. Oh, let's go. I love Madness. Madness is so bad so often, but here, I love it. Yep. Just get some 4/2s for 2. Yeah, sure. Sack a creature. Any player, though, that means TPI and Abdel just like never let that happen. Call to the Netherworld. Okay, Madness that is attached to removal is not where you want to be, because that basically means it's sorcery speed most of the time. It's very timing gated, right? However, this deck is not holding cards in hand more than one turn. Almost ever, right? So maybe these are just fine to just get something out of your spells. Like I love Gorgon Recluse, Grave Scrabbler. Let's just try all of it. We'll just throw it all in there. All the stuff. Back for Seconds, new card from Eldraine. Do you think, does this deck make enough stuff to utilize it? Let's take a look at that one once we're through the madness here. Oh, I wish Insatiable Gorgers was a common. But it's not. It's only an uncommon in a set that doesn't matter for our format. Kitchen Imp, definitely. Probably Murderous Compulsion. Reckless Worm, 100,000%. Revolutionist. We can't play Psychotic Haze because it'll kill our stuff. We could play Revolutionist. I mean, maybe we just want every single way to turn this into Ancestral Recall. Because these aren't Madness is busted in a lot of ways because it breaks the timing of cards. You can cast creatures at instant speed if you can discard cards at instant speed.
Well, because look at Angie in Anhe.
Oh yeah,
whatever the heck. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does very, very good.
Very broken stuff. However, in this deck, all we're saying is that we want to get something out of those cards instead of nothing, right? And so we're happy to get a 3/3 out of it because we're drawing 3 more cards, right? Maybe this one just isn't good enough. Maybe this is too mana intensive and we don't care about instants and sorceries that much. I think the 2/2 is nice because we've got we have a lot of Shadow of Fear, flying, unblockable type stuff. We're gonna need a lot of mana in this deck.
Probably gonna need a lot of rocks.
Yeah, like 10
to really push it.
Oh, and we want them to be cheap, right?
If you do a lot of madness, then you want to have like a lot of rocks in there to allow yourself to cast most of them in your single.
Yeah, to cast all of them and then use the cards you have in hand, right? What is this? Why is this marking here? Is this like part of my collect? I don't have a collection tracker. Get out of here. Remove. Weird. Okay, so it's coming back here. So back for seconds. Let's take a look at that one. What's this card? You're talking about the Wicked Roll, right? The 1 mana? Not dead after all? We're going to want indestructible effects in this deck, basically, right?
If the options are, but how many are there, Red?
There's a lot, actually. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like this one, Oblivion's Hunger. Target creature gains indestructible. Draw a card if it has a +1/+1 counter on it. That works really nice. And this is only for when our commander is not in combat, right? We might need to give it indestructible in other ways. Offer Immortality. These are basically doubling up on our command zone at any time, right? Death Touch and Indestructible. It's the same thing. Man, with all the Death Touch, we could be putting a Viridian Longbow in this deck, couldn't we?
It might be moving into a different direction, but there's still a choice of being.
It's still an option, right? To like deploy it
Yeah.
and then like have this like control game you could play. Here's another one, Lifelink or Indestructible. And then you make an orc that can attack. That's really good. Professor's Warning gives a counter. So you could see a world where you just use this to put the counter on it to get out of bolt range. You have this one as well that gives Indestructible and makes a 1/1. So these are like during our opponent's turn in a lot of cases. This is such a sick looking art. Look at that. Oh my god.
Some of these artworks that these people do.
That's so insane. Gideon just like riding this flaming demon. It's insane.
Just through the sky.
It's so Chad. Look at it. It's so fucking Chad.
Bro's like, yeah, I got this.
You're good. I got you. Yeah, don't expect any favors. No one will ever ride me again. You are my steed now. So these cards, we do need to play some amount of these. We could also, there's actually Demonic Gifts also works because it comes into play untapped. So that does work. There's also Blessing of Leeches, which gives us regenerate endlessly at the cost of 1 life. But it's instant speed.
Yeah, it's still instant speed, exactly.
And actually, type aura, right? Like, what auras could we play that would give us regenerate?
There's the...
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd probably want +1/+1. So, like, Skeletal Grimace and Dark Privilege. Wow, that's rude. This is 1 mana aura. Regenerate the enchanted creature if you sacrifice it. Is that good enough? So you only get 1 use out of it?
It might be still worth it in a sense because you got like we're playing spells that like instants that are technically only 1 use.
Yeah, this is on board, right? So it's like you just get it out there. Increasingly, bounce effects are only played by combo players, and they're played for very specific reasons. They're there to bounce graveyard hate or a creature that's preventing them from comboing. So it's unlikely that they're going to use it on your commander.
Yeah. Especially, you also get a lot of the times where people are going to see the reason why I feel like Anji does so well as well is like when you're discarding your hand, people are seeing that as a disadvantage to yourself and an advantage to themselves.
Yep.
So like they may be like, okay, yeah, there's madness, but how much madness, quote unquote, or like use of the graveyard is going to put the effect in? And in all honesty, the only person I saw of my pods that was playing anything graveyard interaction with the Relic of Progenitus was the Gormod player.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of lacking of graveyard removal. I did a little bit as well, but like, I don't think it's gonna be to that point where like it needs to be that aware of it because people aren't really focusing on it whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a bunch of trample effects here. I like the idea of loading up on some trample so that we can actually connect with Amber, right? Because this is gonna get big, right? You imagine if we're attacking the combo player, like what do they do about this? Like,
yeah, just like sitting chilling.
I mean, I guess like if you do, then they bounce it. That there's a chance that they could bounce it, which it could take some value away from us. But and then in terms of ramp, O-tag.
You also got to figure even with the commander has haste, so even if there's some like removal, they're probably gonna do a heavier focus on the commander itself, which in that case, like whoop-de-doo.
Right.
We don't have to worry about like losing a 2 full rotations.
Is she a warrior? She's a cleric. Weird.
Yeah, dwarf cleric.
That's so weird. I think that we want to play turn. We don't really want to play her on 3 because we need to have creatures in play.
On curve. She's gonna be a day though after curve.
Yeah. So what does that tell us about our ramp? So we want to get ourselves on board. So she's maybe like a turn 5 play.
There's at least if you just play out 4 of the 2 mana rocks, the Felwar, Mindstone, Signet, and the one that does the whole whatchamacallit.
Flywheel Racer is good here.
Because even if it's colorless, it's still.
We kind of want ramp cards that are also creatures, right? Because they can attack. So like Horde Robber. Like what about Leaden Mirror and Iron Mirror type stuff? Is it worth it? It's not worth It's not worth throwing away your rocks.
So the reason why I've been pulling away from the mirrors is
they can't
on
attack.
A more casual level, mirrors are fine. If you're being more competitive due to removal being more prevalent in a competitive setting, you're giving up way more than what you're getting back.
Agreed. Yeah. Zentrum Bandit could go in here whenever it attacks. We make a treasure. Horde Robber is not going to be reliable ramp unless it comes down on turn 2. We have to keep that in mind. I think I like just a lot of 2-mana rocks.
But there's plenty of them at this point.
Yeah, there's lots. Yeah, I've added more than we need here. We're at 97 cards. 97, and there's no lands. So it's probably like, some of the worst, the bad madness cards.
Yeah, things that don't do anything.
Yeah, like Bestial Fury here is... Bestial Fury says it attacks, and if it's blocked, it gains trample and +4/+0. It's pretty funny. Right? Because you pinch them. It means that they have to take they're going to take the amber damage. Because they can't block it.
There's a lot of things that are just toughness 2. There's more often than not, it's only 1, but there's very seldom 3 or 4.
Oh yeah, but if you block her at all, she becomes enormous.
Yeah,
and she's going to trample. So this is actually 3 mana, unblockable, draw card. That's actually really good.
That's not bad.
Yeah. Tillinolli's Crown, +3/+0, trample. It hits her for 1. She doesn't care. Okay. So then... Okay, we can drop the initiative. I don't think we need this. This is like full of so many good cards that like that mechanic doesn't play with what we're doing. In the sense we are hitting everybody, so we're always going to be trying to get the initiative back, but oh my god. I quit smoking my vape today, and I am like, I think I'm doing this right now because I am fiending so hard for nicotine.
Yeah. If this is your first day, Godspeed.
This is my first day. Yeah. Yep. we're occupying our brains with other things.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rakdos Signet ramp, Mindstone ramp. Luckily, I gave it to a person I'm seeing right now, and they have it at their house hidden somewhere where
Okay, that's good at
where I
least.
don't have access to it.
It's far better to do it with in a pair than alone.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
can do exactly what you had them do.
Yeah, exactly. And I have one of my best friends is also kicking the habit right now, so so I figured it was time to do it last night.
Yep.
Okay, how many rocks do we want? Like maybe 8?
6 to 8. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, maybe 6 even. Like it might even be something that we don't. Like I could
I think
see the ability to recast Amber over and over and over being really good, being like important.
it was even in you're playing EDH Layla, it doesn't matter if it dies because it has the haste, so you're immediately getting a value right back
That's
right on
right.
top of it.
Yeah, so you really just want enough mana to just recast it.
Yeah, if you can get to at least 3 casts, if it were to die like 3, once you get to
Yeah.
4, then you're really pushing it, but 3 is still fine.
Yeah, yeah. What do we want to call this category of stuff that goes into the graveyard? Like discardables? Because this is a really unique deck, right?
X value, because you're dumping it.
Yeah, that's right. Like garbage cards?
Yeah, it's basically like whoop-de-doo, here you go.
Uh-huh, okay. Garbage. It's garbage. Okay. This is garbage. This is garbage. I love this. I think that this deck I've had this deck on my mind for some time. I think there's a there there. There's a there here.
I've always seemed I feel Amber has always had some potential to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she's been on the edge of the radar. Like the whole discarding the card, your hand, I think really draws people away from it, and
Yeah.
people aren't used to the mechanics of the timing structure of what madness can do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Demir Houseguard. This isn't
It's fine. What do we have for?
It's got fear. And tutoring things is weird because we have to cast them right away and then we discard our hand. So like is that
So are there any things madness that cost 4 that could be?
And are we going to pay 3 to tutor a 4 and then cast it for 4 and then discard our entire rest of our hand?
Yes, 7 mana. In theory, 7 mana.
No, no, no. No, 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 no.
In the hope, yeah.
No, no, no. We're not doing that.
Unless the what's the one that just return target creatures battlefield that costs 0?
Oh, Dread Return.
Yeah.
Oh, Dread Return is really good in this deck. But you know what? I think we just find Dread Return. I think that we...
Yeah.
Oh, you know what we get to do? We get to play Reanimator spells. So we get to play Rise Again, and we get to play Summon
There's a
Undead.
few that are 4 mana.
Nope, there's only one that's 4 mana.
I thought there was 2.
Nope.
What am I thinking of?
We've got Dread Return, we have Rise Again, Summon Undead. And then after that, we have... we just have Exhume. That's it. We have 4 mana ones in white.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that's what I was thinking about that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
There was several in white for when it comes together.
Yep. Okay, so more garbage. More garbage. I know we've missed some of these, but like some things that we can do by discarding. So Dark Withering is garbage. Fiery Temper is garbage.
What else is
I just want to see how many cards we can discard for profit. Alms the Vein seems very bad, actually. I like the life gain on it, but it's one person. And I just don't know if that's worth a slot. We have Distemper of Blood, also kind of a weird card because Distemper of Blood is just a temporary buff. But, I mean, it's nice on the shadow creatures. Call to the Netherworld, Crawl from the Cellar.
Do we have Hellmongrel in there?
Yep, we got Hellmongrel. We
Okay.
got, yeah, Murderous Compulsion. Okay, so we have 30 cards that we can pitch into the graveyard for profit. 40. No, 30, 31. There's more. There's more. Hold on. I don't think Horde Robber is going to make the cut. And I don't think that Zentrim Bandit is either. I like Ornithopter of Paradise in this deck because it has flying. So it can be a creature that we're attacking without losing it, right?
Without losing the thing, yeah.
What about Suspend? How many Suspend cards do we have? Oh, we get to play Greater Garg. We get to play Gargadon.
Oh, yeah, Gargi.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh.
If the deck could play Gargadon,
Oh,
you've made a good
God.
deck.
This is so Chad. Look at this thing. Ugh. 7/5 Trample Haste. Let's go. Yeah, I love these, dude. We play all these, right? Like, just get them out of our hand. They'll come down later on. Mind Stab, turn 1. Pointed at the discard player. Discard 3 cards. Oh. Or Plunder. Dude, Plunder. Suspend this card and wait for the Gretchen. And the Gretchen player has to play their enchantments on their lands. Oh. It's so foul.
Do we do Burning Inquiry just for shigs?
I mean, why not?
Like,
yeah, maybe we do.
if we have enough things that can come back from the bin.
I kind of like that. So, oh God, are we gonna be like okay? So here's the other question: are we a mass discard deck? So what if? Okay, because we can refill.
Because we could very easily refill.
So say
if they're doing nothing.
Right. So if we go Delirium Skeins and then attack with Amber. Here's how this works. Okay. If we cast Delirium Skeins and somebody says, "Oh shit, I need to kill Amber now." Delirium Skeins is on the stack. We haven't discarded our protection in hand yet. So we protect it. She survives. Delirium Skeins resolves. Everybody's hand goes away, and then we draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
And if you get that out, if you do it fast enough, you're stopping everything.
I think genuinely mass discard is quite bad in multiplayer in cPDH, okay? However, there are some instances, one of them being a blue-black flicker deck that has a ghostly flicker combo in it, and instead of playing counter spells, you empty everybody's hand. And that's the same thing. No interaction. Let's go. Peregrine Drake, ghostly flicker, blah, 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 blah. Possessed Scab, Marsh Crocodile, Quasar, right? These are some decks that could do that.
Yeah, I remember I played with Quasar with this.
Yep. Or the other one is the white-black Abdel deck, right? Flickering these discard cards and then doing your thing. However, this right here, this can do it. Oh, man. I think we're onto something here. Okay, so O each, O discard. But they got to be big ones, right?
Yeah, it has to be at least like...
Yeah, 2 or 3 cards. Like Burning and... This card is so bad. Oh. I don't know if Burning Inquiry is good. Like this is like drawing them 3 cards too. Containment Construct effects at common. What is Containment Construct? I don't know this card. Delirium Skeins. Oh, man. Hopeless Nightmare? No, we don't want that. We want...
Nightmare wouldn't do it.
I like Liliana Spectre because they can attack with flying. Are these good? They're like cheap. They come down early. They're... lets you play the cards you discarded.
There isn't a lot of things that do it. That's the thing.
Victoria says, lets you play the cards you've discarded until end of turn. No, there is not. There is a card called Library of Leng that allows you to put discarded cards on top of your library. It's a very weird card.
There's
Does that do
Sink into
anything with this?
Takenuma,
Yeah.
and then Tassiger's Cruelty,
Okay.
and
Oh,
Unnerve.
Tassiger's Cruelty is really good in this deck. What about the mass discard creatures, these cheap ones? They're giving us a creature that can attack early, that can be part of the swing that allows us to discard our hand and draw 3. But, I don't know. Let's try
But it
it.
also comes down to if we're putting a chunk of those in, at what point, like how many, it's like, for example, the rat color, how many do you put in
Yeah.
to take place of the Unearth / Madness / X, Y, and Z spells, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that comes down to finding the right balance of
I mean,
those.
Rotting Rats is also an unearth card. Oh my god. Rites of Initiation? Oh. Just like cast this. Well, you only draw 3 cards. So if you have 4 cards in hand and you cast Rites, you discard your hand and give your team +3/+0. And then you draw a new hand. That's interesting. We're going to put that in the sideboard. Okay, so Sink into Takenuma. Return any number of swamps. That's only target player. Skullrend. We could definitely play Skullrend. This card is heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy. Tassiger's Cruelty. Siphon Mind? I think what we...
I like Siphon because you're drawing, so...
Oh, you're also drawing. Yeah, it's just that the thing is, like, when we draw all these cards, like, we're going to have to deploy them so that we don't discard them. Virus Beetle. I think those are the ones. We just want the cheap 2 mana.
You can do Mind Extraction and really screw with players.
Oh, we also need Overload. We need a Mind Rake. Yeah. Everybody discards 2 for 2 mana. Okay. Cool. So we're at 110 cards, but we're not going to keep all of them. Rotting Rats goes into here. We need to start getting these into categories. This is recursion and reanimation. What about Unearth? Right? That makes sense.
Yeah. Unearth's another one, yep.
And then we've got Summon Undead for recursion and reanimation. Rise again for recursion and reanimation. And then we've got Discard. I hate it when people discard my shit, I have to say. It feels really fucking bad. And it's partially because I feel like it throws games to people, and I find that frustrating. But genuinely, I love being the person who does it. It's a bad. I'm a bad man, but you know.
No, you're not wrong in that way at all. That's the honest truth.
It's like this is the very much like the zero-sum game part of Magic, right? Where like the things that your opponents want to do to you to win the game don't feel good to have done to you, and you have to decide to enjoy the game anyways.
And just let it roll.
And just like let it roll. You can see all the rationalizing I'm doing right now.
No, it's what we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. So now we have the suspend cards. I genuinely think the suspend cards are insane. And we're going to make a category for them because these cards are basically ways that we can play our cards even if we don't have the mana for them.
I just realized it's 1 o'clock. I need to go to bed.
Yes. I am also...
It's 1 a.m. in my neck.
Oh my God. That is brutal. I think what we're going to do is we're going to save this for another time. Maybe what we'll do is you and I can like work on this together a little bit. But I think there is a there. So I'm going to add you. Are you one more games here on this one? Yeah.
I'm saving everything.
Okay, good. I'm going to give you editor's permission on this one here. So you'll see it up in your notifications here. You can go and accept that when you get it. But yeah, let's wrap things up here. I need to get my nicotine-deprived body to sleep before I think any more about the fact that I don't have it. And yeah, Chris, this was really fun. Thank you for
Hell yeah.
staying up a little longer, and for
Absolutely. Didn't even realize what time it was.
yeah. Thanks for sharing your experience about the tournament. That was really great to hear about all the games, and I'm glad that your deck was doing the thing.
Sweet.
Right on. For folks of you watching, you can find Chris's content. You can find his website at omgmtg.com. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I've got it. First time I got it right on the first try. omgmtg.com. I'll put it in the link below to find all this stuff. You do live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Is that correct?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday. Yep, and you have a competitive and a casual. So tell them about that.
So generally on Tuesday at 10, I do more of a just have fun with it kind of Pauper Commander games. On Wednesday at 7:30, I will do just a casual game with whoever wants to play. Play literally whatever the hell you want. And then 10 o'clock on Wednesdays, we start to do a little bit more competitive Pauper Commander.
Yeah, that's great. There's my yawn coming out. Oh my God, it's time for me too. Great, so you've got the links. Make sure to go and follow him on Twitter as well. And you'll be seeing him posting games in the Common Connoisseurs if you want to get in on those. Final things, if you've enjoyed the content today, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave us a like, do that free thing. You can also leave us a comment if you want to support us in pumping up the algorithm, which has been recently putting us into people's recommended videos pane. It's taken a long time to get there, so keep doing that. It's very helpful. Subscribe if you aren't subscribed already. You can also support this content, myself as a content creator, through patreon.com/Common Connoisseurs, where we have a $2, $5, $10, $20, and $50 a month contribution levels. We have all the way from that $2 for those of you who may not have as much money but still want to support the content, all the way up to 10 and 20 and above if you want to help support me buy a new computer so that I stop getting blue screens of death during tournament coverage, which has been a problem. My computer is on its last legs. So just know that money does go into basically the infrastructure of the channel. So check us out there. Thanks for joining us. It was great. Hope you all had a great evening, and we'll catch you on the battlefield. Peace out.
Peace.